All right, what's going on? Drive time, Tuesday afternoon, 13 minutes past the hour of 2 o'clock. You like 78 degrees and sunny? Well, then you like today. Gorgeous day outside. Beautiful, beautiful Salt Lake City day outside. And as it is every single day, it's good to have you along for the ride. Spence Checketts behind the mic. Porter Larson producing the program today with a lot to do. A lot to do on this Tuesday afternoon, a couple of days away from the Madness of March resuming as the Sweet 16 will get going coming up on Thursday. Talk a little college basketball on the show today. We have the details of the contract buyout for Jared Calhoun as the Utah State Aggies are going to lose another head coach, this time to Cincinnati. Utah State's going to get $3.9 million from Cincinnati, and they have announced they're going to use all of that on NIL endeavors. So will they be able to keep Mason Falslev and some of the other players we talked to Spencer Nelson about yesterday, now that they've got a little money in their back pocket? And what's next for them on the coaching front? Do they call Craig Smith, which I find to be a very interesting dynamic? Of course, Craig was coaching up at Utah State, did a really good job, and then landed down here in Salt Lake City to take over the University of Utah's basketball program. It did not work out, but he is a great coach, and he's a really good guy. So we'll see what Utah State tries to do as they've lost their coach after a really fun season that ended in the second round of the NCAA tournament. Of course, BYU was not able to live up to the hype and the expectations that a lot of people had for them, namely myself, as a result of some injuries certainly, but could not get it done. Lost in the first round of the NCAA tournament. There is this undercurrent of, will A.J. DiBonsa go back to school for one more year? Can I help you with that? The answer is he will not. That's not happening. But offseason ahead to try to continue to build that thing down in Provo, and obviously up here in Salt Lake City, can Alex Jensen and his staff make some additions once the transfer portal opens to get into the mix next year? Talk a little bit about what that might look like. Of course, spring football up on the hill for the University of Utah. We used to call it Camp Kyle. Do we call it Camp Morgan? I haven't heard anybody say Camp Morgan yet. Right?
I guess.
I think Camp Scally sounds better.
Yeah.
So
right.
You know what? File a copyright under my name for Camp Scally right now, please.
I don't know how to do that.
Well, just Google it, dude. ChatGPT. You can do anything with ChatGPT now. I actually have a friend who's a copyright lawyer. I'm texting him. Camp Scally, copyrighted for the afternoon drive here on ESPN 700. So some spring football storylines, some sound from Morgan Scally, and some coaches and players up on ESPN700sports.com. If you're college football thirsty, as a lot of people are all year long, it's kind of the probably the biggest downtime when it comes to, spring football is spring football, but we're still looking ahead to the NFL draft a number of weeks away. There's a new mock draft that has Philly taking a wide receiver. So the A.J. Brown thing is something we're all keeping an eye on in the world of pro football. The Salt Lake City Stars. So Cody Williams joined the list of players that were held out last night. So at this point, let me start again with thoughts and prayers for Yusuf Nurkic and his deviated septum. We're still monitoring that situation. We hope he's okay. Yusuf Nurkic, Jaren Jackson Jr., Lauri Markkanen, Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, all unavailable last night. So it was the Bez Miang show. And Kennedy Chandler, welcome to the group chat, Kennedy Chandler. The Jazz got smoked. They lost by 16. Ace Bailey is the storyline at this point the rest of the way. 37 for Ace. Hit all 8 of his free throws, went 7 of 10 from the three-point line. Had 6 boards, 3 assists, and 2 blocks. The kid really is evolving over the final part of the NBA season. It's always tough to try to understand how much numbers for unserious competing teams mean, but he looks really, really good. Victor Wembanyama with another awesome game last night, and he said he wants to win the MVP, he wants to leave no doubt. The Lakers' 9-game winning streak came to an end at the hands of the Detroit Pistons. So a little NBA basketball, of course, on the show today. The Jazz have 10 games left, 4 at home. And coming up, let's see, tomorrow, the Washington Wizards are in town. The Washington Wizards are in town to take on the Utah Jazz tomorrow. A battle of teams badly trying to lose here in Salt Lake City. tomorrow night at the Delta Center. So, little NBA stuff as well. RSL's on an international break this weekend. They're going to be back in action against Sporting KC. Sergei Solins hopped on the show yesterday. Their young striker, their young number 9, and what an impressive young man. Got about 20 minutes with him. Nice guy acclimating to life here in Utah. So we'll do a little soccer on the show. Of course, high speed ahead of the World Cup starting in our region. A lot going on. The Bees, our guy Tony Parks, the Bees get rolling coming up on Friday. Little Major League Baseball. And Tiger Woods, y'all. Eldrick Tiger Woods will be swinging a golf club on a simulator tonight on television. A little different than walking 72 holes at Augusta, but whenever Tiger's back in the mix, it is a storyline. All right, we'll start things off with our golf expert, Chris Camerani. He did pick Colin Morikawa somehow to win the tournament. Morikawa did, but CK live in studio. We'll do a bunch of college football, a bunch of spring ball with Chris. And Chris is the one who wrote the piece for The Athletic after the public records were released by the University of Utah that shed the light on exactly what went down when Coach Witt exited stage left. So we'll get with Chris on that today. Richard Smith, our guy Smitty, live in studio. We'll do some college and pro basketball with Smitty. Then a really fun basketball guest, Matt Muehlbach, will stop by as well. Then we'll get to the 5 o'clock hour of the program. Chris Camerani, Richard Smith, Matt Muehlbach, me, Spence Checketts. Hello, how are you? To the great listeners on a Tuesday. And that guy who will be tuned in to the Golf League tonight to watch his idol, Eldrick Tiger Woods, hit golf balls on a simulator. I know you're going to be watching.
If there is anyone on the planet who can get me to watch people play a video game or a golf simulator, it might be Tiger Woods. But then again, like I have just as much interest watching Tiger Woods. You know that arcade game, like the Buck Hunter?
Yes,
where you get
for sure.
The plastic gun. And I would be just as enthused to watch Tiger play that as I am the simulator on the flagship. So.
They should actually do that. They should just have Buck Hunter on the side. You hit on the simulator, then you go try to shoot the buck on Buck Hunter.
I'd have a big contract, I think.
Are you good? You are good at that game, aren't you?
Yeah.
I can see that. You know what I'm undefeated at? And if you want to challenge me, just go ahead. Pop a shot. The little pop a shot. I have a system.
Okay.
I am undefeated. Wherever I go, if there's a pop a shot, I just set the high score everywhere I go.
I was going to say, I may have to challenge you on that because I have similar... I don't know if it's cheating. Got long arms and just like get really close and go over and over and over and over again. Like it seems like an easy game. But I have set many a high score on the Papa Shot as well.
All right. If any of our sales staff is listening and breaking news, they're not. If by chance you stumbled upon our station, sell a remote at a sports bar, and we will have people come and watch Porter and I compete in Papa Shot.
Okay. I like it.
All right.
We can make an event out of this.
There you go.
Maybe what's the company that makes the basketball like Lifetime? Isn't that a local hoop outdoor rec company?
No, we could do that. Of all of our sales staff, who do you think the most likely one is listening right now?
Chad.
Yeah, probably Chad. Hi, Chad. All right, our first guest, CK, Chris Camerani, live in studio. But on this Tuesday afternoon, before Chris joins us, courtesy of our good friends at Prize Picks, it's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of The Drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
You can shoot your shot on Prize Picks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right. Prize Picks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. Prize Picks makes every dunk and every dime and every board that much more exciting. So don't miss this chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. It is available and legal in Utah, so you're safe there. New feature alert where you get early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it is good to be right. All right, 10 games left for the Jazz. 4 home games left for the Jazz. It is a painful watch every night. Last night, the building emptied out around the third quarter because if you're a fan, you're like, wait, what are we doing? Why am I even showing up? Okay, so it's almost over. 4 home games, as I said, and 10 games total. The Jazz sit at 5 right now in the lottery standings. I'm going to say 2 games ahead of the Mavericks because this is how we have to do this based off of what the incentive structure in pro basketball mandates teams to do, and then teams like the Jazz doubling down on this. This has been the worst 4-year stretch in the history of Jazz basketball. It's not even close. Not just wins and losses, very little traction during, going in the right direction, very few things to latch on to. But we might be seeing something that for the first time should give you some hope. Now, of course, we know who Lauri Markkanen is. If you're a longtime NBA fan, you know who Jaren Jackson Jr. is. He's very good. Lauri's very good. Keontae's growth this year on offense is real. On defense, our guy has a marathon in front of him before he can even be an average NBA defender. What do you make of a guy like Isaiah Collier? I think he's probably shown he can be your backup or maybe your third option for a team that's good. Bryce Sensabaugh, elite shot maker. Beyond that, the skill set needs to kind of move in the right direction. A little bit disappointed, if I'm honest, about the season we've seen from Kyle Filipowski after being the Summer League MVP. Now, as I say all the time anecdotally, Summer League basketball is interesting. I was an intern for the Jazz in 1997, and I watched Greg Ostertag go toe-to-toe with Tim Duncan in Summer League, and, but what we're starting to see from Ace Bailey, and look, we saw a little bit of this from Cody Williams, but I'm just a believer in Ace in a way that I'm just not with Cody yet, and maybe Cody can change the narrative. Hopefully Cody Williams watched his teammate Keontae George work last year, and he goes and gets in the gym, and he goes and learns how to become a pro in a way that just hasn't been that apparent yet. I don't know if they view him as part of their future. A lot of these young players on rookie deals, you'll keep around because they're cheap and, maybe your 9th, 10th, 11th man. But Ace Bailey, over the past little bit, is making a case to be an all-NBA rookie selection, okay? Remember, Ace was not picked for the Rising Stars Challenge. He was an injury replacement. But last night from Ace, we saw another 30-plus point game. He has 14 games this year of 20 points or more. 3 of the last 5 games, he's gone for 30. And 7 of 10 from 3 last night, 8 of 8 as far as free throws go. He scored more points than minutes played, which is pretty rare. 37 points in 35 minutes of play. And now that they're giving him more usage with a lot of the better players, namely 6 of your top 8 players probably no longer participating in games, which is a wild, wild thing, Ace is starting to grow and show Jazz fans what an elite and unique shot maker he is for his size. We saw a lot of it at Rutgers, and when Dylan Harper was hurt over the course of, I think, 4 games last year, Ace was the primary option, and he was impossible to guard. It's a combination of measurements. A complete skill set, and the kid just has the reputation down there of being a really positive, bright spot who likes to go to work. He has unbelievably intoxicating potential. The problem is, more often than not, so many things have to fall into place for a young player to continue on this trajectory that ultimately at some point could lead to an all-star career. Obviously, you got to stay healthy, but you got to stay motivated. Once you get paid, once you get that second contract, and once you see that money hit your bank account, you would never have to work a day again in your life. Are you willing to continue to work? You need development from the coaching staff, and then you need an organization that is committed to putting you in a situation where you can continue to improve and hopefully at some point play competitive basketball. So for 4 years, the Jazz have not played competitive basketball, at least not overall. There have been moments, right? But overall, 4 years of uncompetitive, unserious approach. We're all told that's going to change next year. The Jaren Jackson Jr. trade is an indicator of that. And we know the deal here where they're continuing just to try to keep the asset, and they're going to be most likely drafting 5, 6, or 7. It is a lottery, and we've seen plenty of teams, namely the Dallas Mavericks and the San Antonio Spurs, move up. The Jazz can move up, grab one of these top 2 or 3 prospects, add that young player to this group. Maybe we're talking about a team that's a top 6 or 7 team in the West next year. We'll have to see. All right, we'll catch a break. Chris Camerani is going to join us live in studio. CK was the guy that wrote the piece for The Athletic based off the public records released from the University of Utah, giving us details for the first time, solidifying a lot of the stories that we alluded to about the uncomfortable ending for Coach Witt, and obviously now it's Morgan's show. So we'll get to some college football with CK, and then we'll go from there. Richard Smith, Matt Muehlbach, busy Tuesday show. It's good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. So for a minute, I thought CK maybe have asked for a little Dave, but then I realized if CK asked for Dave, he would have asked for a deep track only. So this is obviously not a Chris Comrade request, Porter. Is that fair?
No. You guys are too busy gabbing, so.
Right. So I think what we need for the next hit is Don't Drink the Water as a result of his late night appearance on Colbert.
Correct.
Yeah, we'll do that, right?
And I think this is the type, in honor of Andy Bernard as well. Like if we ever go to classic skating down in Orem, and we got our skates on, we're playing this.
I would love to go to classic skating with you and just play Dave Matthews hits the entire time and eat a jelly Uncrustable.
I'm in. Costa Vida too, maybe.
How did the Uncrustable hit just now?
That's good. I've told you I don't know if this is a thing, but I feel like the outside could use a little, maybe a tinge of crunchiness, crispiness. Maybe a little more unhealthy.
Crust?
Maybe glaze it a little bit.
So you would like a little crust on an Uncrustable?
Sure, yeah.
Huh.
Buried the lead.
Maybe we could rebrand it as a kind of Uncrustable.
Yeah.
With a little bit of crust. Have you smashed yours yet?
Oh, yeah.
I just put mine down during the break.
You hand those to me, and they are gone.
Grapes?
Pretty much,
So
I just
good.
inhale them.
Are you a grape guy?
I'm a grape guy. The strawberry's okay. They've come out with a bunch of new flavors. There's one that's like chocolate.
Yeah, no. The honey's good. But that's,
is it?
I mean, we're talking about, again, things that we know. They're just branded with this Smucker's thing.
It's so good. It's the best part of my day for sure. All right, Chris. You were a busy. Stop looking at the ingredients.
I'm just making sure to see if you fed me any preservatives.
I'm sure I did.
Good.
Oh yeah,
It's
preservative.
It's a frozen peanut butter and jelly sandwich with white bread. We're not, you're not getting your protein intake for the day. It's just a little treat is all. I know you got tummy stuff, but it's just a little treat. It's all right.
Thanks.
All right. I'll just ask you to bring on air whatever you feel like you can about this weekend. I saw you first after the records were released by the U, and you filed a request probably weeks and weeks and weeks ago would be my guess. So you did a great job with The Athletic. Our guy Jason Batakia from the Tribune. Those are the two pieces that I've been referencing this entire time. But you share what you want as far as how this weekend went down for you.
Well, once Kyle and the U announced on December 12th that they were parting ways, I think one of the first things I did was put in an open records, a grammar request in Utah's governmental parlance to get information of what that agreement looked like, because for everybody, for the initiated and the uninitiated, as a reminder, Kyle in Utah always had a transitionary package, so to speak, that whenever he was done, he was going to be continued to be paid by the athletic department as a, I don't know what the phrase,
special assistant or
advisor,
something. Yes.
like a liaison type deal.
Yeah.
And so last week the news started percolating that these requests were going to be released, and it wasn't just me; it was the Tribune, Deseret News, the KSL, and the beat guys. They're up there every day. They're doing the hard work, work I used to do, but I'm way lazier now. And it basically provided a very transparent look into what happened between the two sides.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, and I know we're going to go several ways with this, but I can't tell you how many people from a national perspective cannot begin to fathom why Utah decided to move on from Kyle Whittingham. Because here's a guy who had 3 losing seasons in 21 years as a head coach, won 2 conference, well, I don't even remember how many conference titles they won in the Mountain West. Undefeated season, number 2 finish in the AP poll in 2008, eventually two Pac-12 conference titles, 2 Rose Bowls. And people are just like, so what? Like, they can't really wrap their minds around what Utah's worry was. And I know we've talked about, was Utah worried about losing Morgan? Was Morgan going to be wooed by another program? But yeah, that ever since all this stuff came out, I can't tell you how many people either in the business or outside of the business were like, why? And that's where we find ourselves.
Well, and I told you this. One of the things I always just kind of pay attention to understand how big a story is outside of our footprint, because I think you can get lost in the Utah bubble, right? And I think you can just kind of have your head down and say, okay, is this a big deal to anyone outside of this market? So it's the poll from the newsroom, not the sports department. And there was I did a hit on Channel 2 on the news on Sunday night, not on Talking Sports with what I do every week.
With the big boys.
With the big boys. And then how many interview requests do I get from stations around the country? I went on Nebraska radio. I went on Michigan radio. And the one common question I got was, if Kyle Whittingham still wants to coach, why isn't he still coaching at Utah?
Yep.
I mean, to your point, I think everybody that doesn't have the behind-the-scenes access was just curious as to why that was. What if I posed that question to you? If Kyle Whittingham wanted to still coach, why isn't he coaching at Utah?
Well, my semi-informed / if I'm being somewhat not irresponsible, but if I'm postulating.
Okay.
If I'm going off of things I have been told and tea leaves I've read and just things that are out there in the ether / not out there in the ether, people seem to be tired of Kyle being the most powerful person on campus. And sure, they can be entitled to feel that way. But this move isn't made just by Mark Harlan and the athletic department. This is a move made by the guy in the president's chair. It's a move made by the boosters. Like, clearly, several people were convinced that Kyle was not the right person to lead them into the future. And again, like, just people, that's the question that I keep getting. They're like, why? How? Like, was he doing something wrong? And I said, no. Like, eventually, I think people want to see things come to fruition. Kyle's talked about it like over and over again that he wished he'd never put the 65 number out there. Like, and he's acknowledged that. But this is not Mike Gundy basically floundering at the end of Oklahoma State. Like, this is, they had a injury-riddled 2024 where they were on their 5th string quarterback for a second year in a row. Then they bounce back and go 10-2. With a roster that didn't have all that much money from an NIL perspective before the inclusion of the House settlement. Were the boosters more reluctant to want to give money to Kyle while he was in charge? My guess would be probably, because maybe he didn't kowtow. Maybe he didn't show up and kiss the babies and beg and like come in, sit in the back room and give you full access. That would be my guess.
Yeah, let me move over here and get your thoughts on something Porter and I talked about the day this went down. This information that is now public knowledge, and you can read Chris's piece on The Athletic. He referenced the other, the other people that have it, and shout out to the beat writers, to your point. Always try to give them the love because they're up there grinding. It more or less was in lockstep with what I was told. And we talked about some of it. We alluded, I was very careful intentionally about what exactly I said into the microphone, because you don't want to be disrespectful to Kyle. You don't want to say something that you're not sure entirely if it's true, because you have it from one person that might have an axe to grind. I've had to learn in this career when I feel like people are trying to put messages out through me.
Journalism.
It's hard.
You have to talk to both sides.
It's tough, right? Yep. And so I was told that, because it was wild, dude. As I've told you, we start the show that day. I'm doing the intro. Email spills in the Witt stepping down. Throw the rundown out. This is the only thing we're talking about today. I did have Howard Beck on, much to the chagrin of the angry Utah fans, and wanted 4 hours of that. And so, the initial thing was just kind of like, okay, we've thought this might be it. K-State final home game. The entire Whittingham family is there. As Porter has pointed out, pictures are taken. Looks like he's saying goodbye. So I wasn't reacting to it initially as, okay, there's something up here. And then the Mandel tweet comes out that he's stepping down. He still wants to coach. Kyle says himself he's in the transfer portal. And you start to sense a little bit that there's more than meets the eye. And somebody who's very influential listens to the show, and I got all the information from this person that no, Kyle wanted to stay, and not just that. He asked for an extension, and he asked for a raise. It's like, holy smokes. And then the Sharon Moore stuff goes down. He loses his job in spectacular fashion. Witt lands in Michigan. That's a long way of me asking this. Did any of this surprise you?
Well, I want to lay out a timeline because in the span of 24 days, this is what happens, and then I'll get there.
Okay.
Based on the documents we obtained last week, Kyle's agent on Wednesday, December 2nd, which was, or was it Wednesday? Tuesday, December 2nd, so 3 days before he was contractually obligated to let the U know what his plans were, Kyle's agent emailed the U and said he doesn't plan on retiring. The next day, Wednesday, December 3rd, were the terms that Kyle's side presented to Utah. So 2 days later, he was contractually obligated to let them know, so he had fulfilled that already.
Yeah.
By the following Thursday, December 11th, Kyle had decided that he was moving on. The following day, they buttoned down the language of their release. They released it. Kyle is parting ways with Utah. But 2 days before that, Sharon Moore is arrested and fired.
It was 2 days before that.
Correct.
Okay.
Sharon Moore was arrested and fired on Wednesday, December 10th. 2 days later, Kyle and Utah part ways.
That's important.
So we're just there was a huge portion of the fan base that was convinced that there was some sort of shadiness going on from Kyle's camp, when clearly we have documentation that Kyle had in writing from his representatives that he wanted to come back to Utah 8 days before Sharon Moore was fired.
And 2 days before the deadline, right?
3 days before.
3 days before the deadline. Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and then 2 weeks, I believe, 2 weeks to the day after Utah and Kyle parted ways, he's announced as Michigan's head coach the day after Christmas. Was any of this surprising? The most surprising thing to me was the counter from Utah to Kyle's camp.
Yep,
because
that's the answer. That's wild, dude.
Reading, just as somebody who's been here for a long time and understands the landscape of this place, like, that to me is the most damning piece out of all this, because it's almost more offensive to send that rather than just saying we don't want you, because you're offering him a job. Like, I'm going to give you an example. Probably a bad example for your listeners, but the dude from Life Aquatic, the Bond Company stooge, who's supposed to hang out with Steve Zissou the entire time to make sure everything's above board. You think Kyle's going to do that?
Yeah, no,
Come on,
absolutely
man.
not. Yeah,
It was, I think it was so egregiously written that I don't know. I mean, I think if you could maybe have gotten away with a couple of those, bylaws, so to speak. But woof, man, that to me was the most surprising. And then secondarily, the letter from Mark Harlan to Kyle in January that they were going to pay him the first installment of the 13.5, which is just a little over $8 million. And Mark saying that he was disappointed in Kyle's actions, that he disrupted the, quote, smooth and successful transition. But listen, I'm sure you guys talked about this yesterday. I'm sure Sean talked about it. There wasn't correct language in this contract agreement. They wrote in that Kyle could not be a paid or unpaid assistant coach or head coach at any school in the state of Utah. But they did not cover themselves when it came to everything else.
Correct.
When it came to taking another job and taking assistants or players.
Correct. So just to review, in case anybody missed it, to Chris's point, I think he did an excellent job of outlining the timeline. December 2nd, Coach Witt's agent reaches out to Jeff Rudy, Utah Associate Athletic Director, with the following: as we discussed, Coach Whittingham does not intend to retire at the conclusion of the 2025 football season, a full 3 days before the deadline for Witt to do that. And then Witt's agent follows up with the request, which is a salary of $9 to $9.6 million, NIL budget of $20 million, assistant coach salary pool increased to $2 million, and another year on his deal. Wanted an extension. Okay, so then, to Chris's point, the counteroffer was sent. And this is December 6th. John Jentz, Associate Athletic Director, sent an email to Rudy and Associate AD Jason Greco outlining the terms of a contract amendment that would map the transition to a new head coach, which, of course, is Morgan Scalley. And the new deal, outline proposal, Kyle would get a deal worth $8 million, not $9.6 for his final season, but it would come with the following stipulations. Morgan Scalley would have full and final oversight over decisions involving recruiting, player personnel, the program's general manager, and other matters that would impact the program beyond 2026. Any staffing decisions Whittingham made would need to be approved by the athletic director. I promise you, when Kyle read that sentence, it was over. And then an athletic department senior administrator chosen by the department would be housed full-time within the football facility, to your final point. So I will echo what you just said. The only thing, I wasn't surprised that Witt wanted to stay. Yep. I wasn't surprised that he wanted an extension. I wasn't surprised that he wanted more money. The only thing that I was not aware of is what the counter offer looked like and just how quickly Kyle just must have gone double bird and was like, no chance I'm doing that.
So, and we can also take into account the marketplace of, I guess we can start with the Big 12. Kyle was making, I think, with all of his incentives, 6.9 last year. Deion Sanders, who was and maybe still is worth his weight in gold and boulder, was at basically $10 million.
Mm-hmm.
Kalani Sitake, Cookie Bro, and all the other bros stepped in.
Our guy.
My guess would be Kalani would have been making more than $6.9 million
for sure
at BYU.
Absolutely.
Starting this year.
Yeah.
And you could make an argument that Utah was getting Kyle on a bargain deal for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Is $9 million a lot per year for a guy that is the architect of your program, that has put you on the map, that does things his way and doesn't like to really bend the knee for anybody else? And let's just be honest, Kyle does things his way, meaning that when he makes a decision, he makes a decision. But when he's not ready to make a decision, he doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
And did that get annoying to the people up on the Hill? Sure. But is that a bad problem to have? That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
What was the ultimate fear of the administrators and the power brokers at the U had Kyle decided to stay? Had he let them know before the K-State game?
Yeah.
Had he let them know before the Kansas game?
Yeah.
That, to me, is the most fascinating part of this. And I don't know if we're ever going to get people to talk about that on the record, because I think at this point people might be afraid of looking even worse.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, I don't think Morgan Scalley was ever going to leave.
Mm-hmm.
He probably got annoyed that he had to wait a little while longer.
I think that's very safe to say.
But even if he did leave, even if Morgan said, you know what, I'm going to go coach UC Davis, you think he would have turned Utah down after whenever Kyle decided his dream job?
Right.
I just don't.
Yeah.
That argument to me never held that much weight.
So to get back to this, what we discussed, the contract amendment, where Witt had a 2-year agreement after he retired to be paid about $3.5 million to be a special advisor, whatever that meant. They came to an agreement with a buyout. Now, some folks are very upset with this buyout. I know not every coaching circumstance is similar, but if you go look at the total number of dollars paid to other coaches for a buyout, this is pennies on the dollar, right? So it's a lot of money, of course, but in this ecosystem,
spread out over 3 years.
Correct. In this ecosystem, you can go look up other coaches' buyouts after
Brian
they've
Kelly
left.
Got $64 million to go away, by the way.
What did Jimbo Fisher get? 72 or something? And again, I know like there's some false parallels as far as the comparisons go, but the point stands. So on January 23rd, Kyle got a first installment of $8 million plus $13K in interest for temporarily withholding the money. And Chris referenced the letter that Mark Harlan wrote Coach Witt. It said this, quote, "As you know, the university was disappointed by your actions last month. The university felt that your involvement with recruiting our football coaches and staff to Michigan was contrary to the terms of your employment agreement, which requires you to assist with a smooth and successful transition of the football program to the new head coach and his coaching staff. Your position was that this provision only prohibited non-disparagement. We have determined that a fight over this issue would not be in the long-term interests of the university and its football program or your legacy as our longtime football coach. We have decided to look to the future, and we hope and expect you to do the same." Translation, we dug in with our lawyers to see if you actually violated the terms of your deal, and you did not, so good luck. Right?
Yeah, correct. So our suspicions were correct, and my former coworkers, who I think are kind of this sports kind of Kornheiser and Wilbon, Andy Staples and Ari Wasserman.
Sure, yeah.
very, very smart minds, very good at what they do. Their podcast yesterday basically was aghast at the fact that Utah is paying Kyle Whittingham $13.5 million over the next 3 years to coach at Michigan when he's already signed a 5-year deal that's going to be paying him in the area of $8 to $8.5 million a year.
Yeah.
It's not a good look.
No.
It's a terrible look, especially for an athletic department that is not exactly flush in cash. And sure, if you're going to spin it a certain way, they say, well, we have this PE deal coming in, but when do we know that that's actually going to hit the bank account for the athletic department and the hospital and the school and all that stuff? We don't know. But there are more questions to be answered, and I'm interested to see if people, after this dies down a little bit, will be interested, or if they want to just let sleeping dogs lie.
Remind me, so Sharon Moore gets arrested and fired on Saturday?
Nope, the 10th.
The 10th.
Wednesday the 10th.
Wednesday the 10th.
And then 2 days later, Kyle and Utah part ways.
Okay. So Wednesday the 10th, Sharon Moore is arrested and fired, and 2 days later, Witt steps down.
Yep. But Witt and okay, and if you want to go tinfoil hat conspiracy theory
I'm just
and say I'm just
curious.
saying to the people people who want to go there, I think Kyle would be the first one to tell you. Reporters who know would be the first one to tell you Kyle was not number 1, number 2, or maybe even not number 3 for that job.
Yeah.
Kalen DeBoer, Jed Fish, Kenny Dillingham. The list had a few people on it before they got to Kyle.
Yeah, so it's probably easy to surmise without knowing for sure that during those 48 hours, Witt probably was not informed that he was an option for Michigan.
Well, and when was he informed that he was no longer the option for the University of Utah?
Right.
That's one thing we also don't know.
Yeah.
Because they sent that counteroffer on Saturday the 6th. How long before the 6th and the following Friday? I know that Kyle decided on Thursday, December 11th, that he was done at Utah.
So it's really fascinating because, again, as a result of Utah not pursuing any sort of litigation, what the letter means is they talked to legal, and legal said there's nothing you can do.
Yep.
And so they spun it with like, hey, you move on, we're going to do the same. But on the other side of it, taking 7 assistant coaches and 5 really good players is not technically part of a smooth and peaceful transition, right?
All's fair in love and war, man.
Well, I'm just saying.
Sure.
I mean, but it's not illegal, but it's not part of a smooth and successful transition either. Now, he's the coach at Michigan.
Correct.
So his job.
There wasn't specific language in the contract.
Right.
If there was one more bullet point or addendum or whatever that said, yes, you can't coach at Southern Utah anymore, blah, blah, blah. You can't, and if you take another job outside of the state, you can't take assistants with you.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, then he would have violated it. But guess what? The language was not written.
Correct. And that's why there's nothing being pursued.
And again, you're putting Kyle Whittingham in this awkward place where you're basically showing him the door after he built this into something that nobody ever thought it could be. And you basically left him twiddling his thumbs for a couple weeks. You know, he starts interviewing with Michigan, a week or so after they part ways, whatever. But like, what is he supposed to do? Like, is he supposed to go raid the Provo High School coaching staff? I just don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
It is that is the murkiness of like the browbeating and the chest thumping of like, you have to do the right thing. It's like, well, I think there's one side that can argue that the way they tried to, clearly, but there's another side that said like, is the right thing to drive out the guy who basically put you on the map?
Yeah.
And that's what like everyone's been asking me. They're like, if the game had passed him by, if he was not successful, if they were not raising enough NIL money, if they were not winning games, I mean, were they technically in the Big 12 conference race, like into the second, like the Kansas State game, maybe? I don't remember when they were eliminated.
They would have needed a lot to go their way.
But the fact that like they were still like in the mix in November, I don't know.
Yeah.
I just think like it was messy. I think it would have, it probably would have been better to get this out of the way like immediately.
Yeah.
in January.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
No, you could make a compelling argument that Utah was the second best team in the Big 12 last year. BYU made it to the Big 12 championship game, and the scoreboard matters. So because BYU beat Utah, BYU gets the nod on paper. I think there are a lot of people that really believe if Witt would have decided to maybe kick some field goals down in Provo, that game goes differently, So to your point, the Utah football did not take some precipitous fall. There were 2 years where they couldn't get healthy at all, that were rough.
But that 1 year, they went to a bowl game.
They won.
Still.
I said that might be his best coaching job. They got 8 wins playing 77 quarterbacks. Then the next year, it was just one of those outliers where no one was healthy. There's no evidence that Witt has lost his fastball. None.
I agree. I think, and this is just me postulating again, clearly people up there wanted a different voice.
Yep.
They wanted a different face of the program. Why, to me, will be the question. And I guess that's something I have to try to figure out, because it would have been easy to point to results and say, 66 fastball. I mean, the Gundy fall was pretty precipitous.
It was easy to see.
This dude who basically had Oklahoma State punching above its weight for a long time in the mix for the Big 12 every single year, nosedive the last couple of years.
Yeah.
That was not the case at Utah.
Yeah. One more thing before we catch a break, and we'll continue this a little bit. There's some other things I want to get with CK on. I don't do the whole who deserves the blame. Let's just put it at the feet of one person, put it at the feet of one side. I think if Kyle is guilty of anything at all, it's being flaky. And I think I feel comfortable saying that Morgan probably was ready to see the change that had been promised him for 6 or 7 years, if we're honest. I mean, of course, what happened back in the day, he got it taken away from him, then it was restored. So I do think there probably was a little bit there when it came to Morgan kind of looking around going well, wait a second, when are we doing this? I thought it was this year. I thought it was last year. When is it happening? But I think, and I'll give you the final word, then we'll break. I think the main impetus for this came from very rich people that were ready for Morgan. And I think a lot of that had to do with Morgan's a very charming guy, right? Morgan's going to go on your golf trip. He's going to get a call from a booster and say, yeah, I'll go speak at your luncheon. And I'm not saying Kyle never did that. I'm saying I don't know that Kyle is as good at that as Morgan is. And I had somebody tell me once upon a time in my career, managing up is a skill. And I don't think I was great at it when I was younger in this business. And I think that's a skill Morgan has that I don't know that Kyle really cares to cultivate. Is that fair?
Oh, I definitely think so. And I think you could make an argument that Kyle was maybe the most powerful sports figure in the state of Utah.
For sure.
For a very long time.
Yep.
More powerful than, if we're talking dollars and cents, sure, Ryan Smith is, but nobody carried as much, power and weight in this market for as long as he would basically, it was like Jerry Sloan than Kyle Whittingham.
Yeah. Then Aaron Falk.
But to your point, and I don't even know if I would use the word flaky. I would say that his psyche is, something that is entrenched in this job, so much so that if Utah loses that Kansas State game, does he retire? Does the insanity of that comeback, does that play a role in him wanting it? Honestly, there are so many little butterfly effects to this entire thing. We could spend an entire hour on talking about the butterfly effect of that. My question to you and your listeners is, sure, if he's flaky or a little inconsistent in making up his mind, has he earned that right? That's a question I would pose to people.
Well, and I'll just answer it and coming up on the other side of a break, we'll bring Porter in for the Kansas State scene setter. He outlined it really well earlier I guess last week when this went down, because your point is well taken. I've said it before. I'm on record. I'll stay on record that Kyle Whittingham, in my opinion, earned the right to tell us when he was done.
I agree.
That's how I feel.
Yep.
All right, we'll catch a break. More coming up next. Maybe a top 5 Dave song to see live. Okay. Central Park, 2003, opener, 110,000 people. If you've never downloaded the Dave Matthews Band live Central Park album, go do it now. Listen to this opener. Unbelievable, dude. What?
More of a Warehouse guy.
Warehouse is a good pull. That is good knowledge.
Can I tell you a funny Dave Matthews story?
Yeah, please do, but don't be mean about it.
No.
You always send me that dumb GIF or whatever.
I can't remember what year it was. It was probably like 2009.
Is this a Gorge story?
No, this is a USANA story.
Okay.
We were at USANA for a Dave show, and most of my friends at the time were active members of the church.
Sure.
And one of them still is, bless his heart.
Shout out.
One of the biggest Dave fans.
A lot of LDS people like Dave, which means they never listen to his lyrics.
Our guy showed up with his neck swollen. And I was like, dude, what's wrong? He's like, dude, I got strep throat. And I was like, are you like, yeah, did you go to the doctor? He's like, yeah. And I also got like this weird spider bite.
What?
So like his whole body was like inflamed.
Stay home, guy.
Oh, listen. And then somehow this guy, returned missionary, holder of all the stuff,
and
ends up on a carpet with a bunch of cougars. And it was getting wild for a second.
While he had strep and a spider bite.
That's when you go to Dave, dude, you just let it fly.
Hey, when you go to Dave, all bets are off.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. I'm telling you, don't drink the water, Central Park 2002. It's a great opener. Warehouse is an excellent poll. Porter, what's your favorite Dave song to hear live?
Satellite.
There you go.
No, dude.
Yeah, no, that's good.
Live?
Yeah, I mean, he's looking for a chance to come bring it down a little bit.
Okay, like a bridge.
Yeah, a good bridge. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of bridges, Don't Drink the Water. 2004.
Okay.
Chicago. I think.
Okay. All right.
Hey, there you go.
It was the bus. It was the bus.
Man.
Don't bring the Aaron Falk bit on the show.
That's good.
It was the bus driver.
You set yourself up for that.
You really did.
It was the bus driver.
Yeah. Oh. Why are we blaming the working class on the drive?
Okay, let's move on.
We know this is a woke show.
Okay. Occasionally it does get a little woke. What was the tweet? I like about 90% of the content, then it gets too woke. All right, let's bring Porter in. So you brought up an interesting point, and let's reset this here. Chris Camerani live in the studio, our college football insider, savant, and expert. And we'll get a pick for the golf tournament from Chris coming up as well. K-State game, okay? So you referenced if Utah loses that game, does Witt retire? Which is an interesting thing to consider based off of what Porter witnessed that night. So let's reset that.
Yeah, it just kind of setting the scene there. You show up before the game, and everyone with the last name Whittingham and then some were on hand for this, right? There's a whole section of Whittinghams and a whole box of Whittinghams and all of the above. And they all were like clearly emotional the entire time. They were taking a bunch of pictures. They were, having a dinner together. And then after the game, they got together on Rice-Eccles Stadium field on the University of Utah logo, and they took like family pictures, right? It took a while. It took 30 minutes or so to get all that done with. And usually at a Utah football game, the last thing Kyle does, because it takes a little bit of time to get there after the press conference, after an interview on TV, he comes and sits down and chats with Bill on the postgame show. It's usually like 45 or more minutes after the game is wrapped up.
Beers with Bill or just chats with Bill?
Just chats.
Just
okay.
chats.
Not with Kyle. Kyle usually kombucha.
Got it.
But it's very routine. And as you know, Kyle is very routine. And this one just felt a little different, right? He, instead of after the interview, which he usually is done with that, he's out of the stadium. He hung around a little bit, and it felt like, yes, a goodbye, and then it lingered, and he just hung out a little longer, and then his family was there, and it started to feel more awkward than like there was some good
the writing was on the wall, basically.
Good faith finality to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like early on, and then as the game went on and as this post game went on, Kyle he looked conflicted, and it was a little awkward in the room. And, I just read on his eyes that there was something more than this is just my last game in Rice Eccles, because it very much was a different feel in that room.
Well, he broke character. And
that's what I was going to say. So it brings us to the post-game presser, because that was senior night. And if you don't remember, if you missed it, as Whit was addressing the group, he started to get emotional when he said the following. He was talking about his seniors. He was talking about his players. And then when he said the sentence, their last chance at Rice Eccles Stadium, that's when he got emotional.
Yep.
Tried to save it by saying, I always cry when I talk about my seniors. I'm like, no, you don't.
No.
Liar. I've never seen you cry.
Not even close.
So that was the moment that got him, Chris. I mean, I don't know when. I feel like you would be the guy for this. And maybe it's when he's done coaching. But a sit down with him just to be like, let's get it all out, dude. What was that like? What was going through your head? What was the moment that led you to deciding that you're not done with this? Because, I mean, we got a lot with the records request, and I'm glad that Utah released them. But it feels like there's a lot of meat on this bone that we might never know.
Well, to your point, I think maybe the meat is sliced off if Kyle doesn't have another job, if he actually ends up retiring. But not only did he take another job, he took another job at a school that needs the least amount of drama possible.
Right.
And I think that can't be discounted in this conversation.
For sure.
As well as, like, it doesn't benefit Kyle to bring Michigan into any more drama at this point.
Yeah.
And sure, maybe I'll call Kyle and see if he wants to go to a Tigers game.
There you go. Yeah.
We can ham it up in the nosebleeds, but
I think Whit will get good seats.
You think so?
Probably.
Not a man of the people.
Well, I mean, just a man that has access to third base, adjacent seats.
All right. I'm more of a sweet guy. I don't want to be cold.
He could probably get a suite if he wanted to.
I'll ask. Time will tell.
Yeah.
Time reveals all secrets.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing that just crossed my mind is last year, I thought it was his last year. I covered the season. Like, I think this is Whit's swan song. BYU game happens. It felt like he was calling that game like it was his last chance to beat BYU in a way.
Heartbreaking fashion.
We all know what
happened.
Yep. I am at an event the week after the BYU game, a fundraiser, and randomly am seated next to a very powerful person in the Utah sports ecosystem. And I didn't bring it up. I didn't bring BYU up until the end of the dinner. And he was kind of talking to some other people, and I'm just kind of doing my thing. And I look at him and I say, hey, how about that BYU game? And he looks dead at me for the first time all night. He looks right into my eyes and says, field goals are important too. And I went, huh, okay.
Listen.
But let me finish this, then it's you, okay?
Sure.
So I covered Utah football last year and said on multiple occasions, this is it for Kyle. Sean O'Connell, who played there, and as his former teammates, now the head coach, covered the season last year with his understanding that this is Kyle's last year. But as the season started winding down, every ex-player I had on, I said, is this it for Kyle? And every single one of them said, no, he's coming back.
Yeah.
Which I found really interesting.
I'm going to just go off my personal opinion and my informed knowledge of when it comes to Kyle Whittingham, most of it is speculatory. His circle of what he actually tells people is so insanely tight. I mean, there's a reason why there was never any leaks out of that building.
Right.
So while some people might have heard second, third, or fourth hand, I was never going to be convinced until I saw him put out a statement or press release or whatever. That's all I'll say on the topic. But were we operating with the assumption that he was going to retire last year? I think so. But again, this goes back to how we ended the previous segment. Had he earned the right to change his mind? I mean, I think so. But you got power players second guessing fourth down calls. It's like, did you forget about beating BYU 9 years in a row or
Sure.
whatever.
It's fair. It's fair.
It is so interesting how people tend to forget the past, how people live in the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right or wrong,
Yeah.
but field goals matter too, Spence.
I've seen a lot of reaction from a lot of people placing a lot of blame at the feet of the athletic director, a lot of blame at the feet of Mark Harlan. Let me offer this. You're Mark Harlan. You're the AD. You hear from your 4 richest donors that we're ready for Morgan. You don't really have a choice, right?
Well, I will say that this is not on one person. This is on a multitude of people. And ultimately,
Multitude. I like that.
And ultimately, for Trey, the only way this will be adequately measured is how Morgan does at Utah and how Kyle does at Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Andy and Ari said it yesterday on their podcast. So, but I would have said it anyways. If Utah goes 10-2 and Michigan goes 10-2, people say Utah made the right move.
Mm-hmm.
Utah's in right spot. Kyle's doing great. Michigan goes 10-2. Utah goes 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
If Michigan's in the mix for a Big Ten championship or a top 12 spot, and Utah's not, then things get interesting.
Yep. If there's such a thing as a football god, somehow, some way, Michigan and
That ain't
Utah.
happening.
Well, or
Playoff is the only
playoff,
way.
right?
Or bowl game.
If there's such a thing as a football god, CFP or bowl game is Michigan Utah next year.
Or not even CFP. Could be a bowl game.
Either way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, what would be the ideal bowl game if it's not CFP? Where do we want to go?
Man, at this
Your
point,
favorite place, San Antonio?
somewhere warm, not San Antonio. San Antonio is not the spot. Charles Barkley was right for years.
I like San Antonio.
I went there too many times. You can only eat nachos and walk around the river walk multiple times. I want warm weather. Give me Southern Cal. Give me Southern California.
San Diego?
Give me San Diego.
Snapdragon Stadium?
Give me Dana Point all day. Love it.
Not Orlando? Citrus Bowl?
No, I mean, Orlando, no. I mean, you got sunshine.
Yeah.
But it's like, my son served his mission in Orlando. And when he announced
Right, I forgot about that.
Have you seen
SeaWorld,
Have you seen the Book of Mormon
Disney,
play? Have you seen the play Book of Mormon?
Putt golf.
Have you seen the play Book of Mormon?
Yeah, I just quoted it to you.
Okay. Yeah, I mean the song he sings about serving in Orlando. When Connor said Orlando, the song comes right into my head, but all of his little cousins like, "Oh, you're going to Disney World." I'm like, "He's going to Central Florida." It's a much different deal.
For my friends, we're on a crazy tangent, but my friends who live in Florida say that the only place that you don't want to live in Florida is Central Florida.
Not the spot at all. So I would prefer a warm weather destination with Michigan and Utah side by side.
Is the drive on the boots on the ground?
We will make
leading up.
Yes. Based off the fact that there's no language in this contract prohibiting Witt from coming to take players and coaches, that Witt was coming to take players and coaches. You have to know that. All of us did. I did a hit that night on KUTV. Adam Mikulich, sweetest of us all, asked me which coaches and players follow Kyle Ann Arbor. I said, whichever ones he wants. And it turned out to be true. So that interesting wrinkle here, they had to be on high alert knowing that this could get bad.
Like I said, the butterfly effect to this thing could be a 30 for 30 on its own.
Yeah.
Just those 2 or 3 weeks in December. Conventional wisdom points to the reality that there's no way Utah thought that Kyle was going to get a job better than Utah when they decided to go in the other direction.
Right, and decided to not include any language in the contract other than we just don't want you to coach at BYU, basically, is what that language said.
Utah Tech, no love.
Good point. Maybe
Porter's alma mater.
Yeah, good point. Maybe UVU creates a football team. Who knows? But that was, hey, you're not going to coach at BYU.
I agree.
Yeah. A penny for Kyle's thoughts, where he clearly felt disrespected and walked out the door and said, "Send me a check for $8 million. I'm taking 7 of your coaches and 5 of your best players too."
Not just $8 million. $8 million now and then another 3, and then another 2.5.
I mean, that is a power play, bro. For a guy that clearly felt like he was disrespected, and yes, he didn't do anything illegal based off the language in his contract, but I said this like the week after. This is the divorce where Kyle says, I'm taking the wife, or excuse me, I'm taking the kids. Obviously, he's divorcing the wife. I'm taking the kids, I'm taking the house, I'm taking the boat, I'm taking the cars, I'm taking the vacation home, and I'm taking the frequent flyer miles too.
Don't forget the Huffy.
The Huffy, obviously. All right, let's spend a couple of minutes talking about the new football coach, Morgan Scalley. Mm-hmm. Now that we've spent the past, 45 minutes talking about this Witt stuff.
First guest on
the new podcast.
Well, can we just make sure that you're talking to an original here?
The original.
Like height of COVID, like sitting here with a mask on.
Yep.
Just want to make sure everyone knows that we were out here doing layman's work for everyone.
It was you, it was Amy Donaldson, it was Aaron Falk. Yep. The reality check deep cuts at some point might be released on B-sides, but it has been rebranded with our friends at KUTV. February days where it was snowy and cold, you showed up, we're wearing masks, I had a man bun, stuff was weird, but we did the thing.
We did it.
We did the thing. So, brand new podcast, KUTV, first guest, Morgan Scalley, relentless, smart, nasty ball hawks. And I asked him, because the podcast was recorded on the day the news came out, which added an extra layer, I think, of panic with some people about how this was going to go. And they said, are you going to ask him? I said, of course I'm going to ask him. I can't not ask him. So I just basically outlined what we had learned and what the public is now acutely aware of. And I just said, how was this for you? And I think it was nice for Morgan's seat just to be the coach and leave everything else, administrative work, to Mark and his staff. He didn't have to get involved there. But that's another layer here where you wonder whether or not Morgan is feeling a little bit robbed of the narrative and what it should be for him as a first-year head coach.
It's a disservice to him, for sure. That is a byproduct of all this, because it's something that he shouldn't be having to deal with, but this is the collateral damage, so to speak. I mean, this head coaching and waitings are always tricky. Like Ryan Day worked. What's his name at Texas? He bounced before Mac Brown.
The young kid, Will Muschamp.
Will Muschamp went to Florida because he got too tired of waiting. It's always tricky, because it's hard to see the guy who is in charge, who has all the power, who has all the sway, who gets paid the most money. It's hard to see him want to step away, especially when things are going okay. But the collateral damage of this is Morgan having to deal with it. And I know folks in the media market have said that, like, you couldn't find a bad vibe up there right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, sure. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess we're in the spin zone, whatever. It's also March 25th, whatever day it is. He's not going to talk about it because he doesn't need to. Like you said, he wasn't directly involved. Yeah. If he was directly involved, then he probably should speak on it.
Yeah. The one question that I did lean into a little bit, and he did answer to his credit, is what it was like over the course of 72 hours to have to replace 7 coaches. And to Morgan's credit, like he said after the Vegas Bowl, he said, if you don't think we have a plan, you don't know who we are. And he said over the years, because again, coaching waiting for multiple years, he has compiled these lists of coaches that he would hire should he have to fill a hole. So Jason takes the Michigan job, Kevin McGivern, top of the list. And he went down okay, if Jim's going to leave, I want Jordan Gross. And he did have a plan. You have to give him credit for being able to step up over the course of 3 or 4 days and fill all the holes that were left.
Well, and who's to say, I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but who's to say that Jason Beck wouldn't have got a Godfather offer from someone else, even if Kyle had stayed?
Sure.
Because of how prolific his offenses had been.
Yeah.
If a Big Ten or an SEC school came calling, was Jason going to turn down an extra $1 or $2 million,
right,
which he got at Michigan?
Yep.
Probably not.
Yeah.
But I mean, good first test for Morgan, but as we've talked about, you can, as a Utah fan, you can be excited for the new era. You can be excited for the social media presence and for the overall ambiance that he brings, but none of it means anything until they actually play games.
Sure.
You can be drinking the Kool-Aid, so to speak, of how what's being relayed to you through various channels. Still a ton of questions to answer. An insane amount of questions to answer.
Need I say one more time, results over vibes on the drive, 2 to 6 live, no exceptions every day.
I also stamped that.
Fair enough. Last thing, give me a quick, speaking of high vibes.
Yeah.
Gutty point on the road against a good San Diego
Should have
team.
been 3.
What do you think so far?
That was an awesome game.
Yeah,
that was one of the most entertaining MLS matches that I've seen in a long time.
Yeah.
2 teams that clearly knew what they wanted to do. RSL is so like we used to talk about like this team is old, maybe not old. They're just like slow and they're like kind of the build up play is so kind of boring and methodical. But now like they on the counter, man, like with Gozo and Sanabria, like those guys are terrors when the ball turns over.
Yeah,
got to figure out a way to not have guys 2-on-1 versus Hoffa Cabral.
Yeah,
because that happened a little too much in San Diego,
Yep.
but. They should have 3 points. I mean, like, yeah, vibes are great. Like, can Diego Luna get enough run to be on Pochettino's basically radar in the next month and a half?
he needs to get in shape, dude.
Hey, man, he had a knee injury.
Yeah, but he still needs to get in shape.
He needs goggles like Victor.
He does. Yeah, when they used to concede first or go down a goal, I'm like, I'll turn it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now you think they can actually equalize and maybe win.
Yeah.
All right, fella, get out of here. Good to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Chris Kamrani from The Athletic, brought to you today by IFA Country Stores. IFA Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer and Lawn Food gives your turf a strong start for months of thick emerald grass and will leave your neighbors green with envy. It provides a fast green up, helps your grass build up the energy it needs, and it defends against weeds. Only at IFA. Very exciting developments last night in the Delta Center as Kennedy Chandler has entered the group chat. No Cody Williams, no Keontae George, no, of course, Larry Markkinen, no Jaren Jackson Jr. Continue to send out good thoughts and prayers to Yusuf Nurkic and his deviated septum. And Richard Smith went and watched the game.
No, well, Spence, you got to stay on top of all these developing issues. For example, the young guys, whether it's George or Cody Williams, apparently they're fully developed. And their skill sets are all set and they're ready to go.
It's very exciting
because the Jazz don't need to play them anymore. They know what the deal is, and that development program has seen its fruition and the end of it. So we just sit them down, and we don't need to see anymore. We'll bring up the young guys from the G League who weren't even part of our G League team a couple weeks ago, and we'll put them on an NBA uniform, and we'll try and see how many more people we can fool in this masquerade this year.
So it's actually exciting news that they don't need to develop Cody Williams or Keontae George anymore.
Well, apparently they're done.
That's great.
I mean,
how exciting!
Otherwise, isn't the development plan isn't the purpose like these meaningless games at the end of the year? We're supposed to get them some run. Let them make some mistakes, go over the film the next day. Hey, this is what you did. Okay, now tomorrow night we're going to try and run this stuff, and we're going to work on that or whatever. Apparently that's done. So, okay.
Yeah. I think that's exciting news. That's an exciting development.
Fans should glom onto that because apparently those guys are ready to rock and roll next year.
So, next year. So fans are leaving the building early now.
Well, I'll tell you what, Spence, last night it was just my Richard Smith often failing eyeball test told me that they had the smallest crowd of the year. Last night there were a lot of empty sections upstairs and a lot of scattered open seats downstairs. And now, okay, granted, it's the middle of March. The Jazz aren't going anywhere. They're playing Toronto. It's a Monday night. Okay, you throw all those factors in there. But still, it'll be interesting to see tomorrow night. Obviously, they play the Washington Wizards, and another bottom feeder in the league, and so it'll be interesting to see if they have even fewer people who show up for that game.
Well, I bring it up because every time I have a guest on the show that works for the Jazz, or every time I hear somebody that works for the Jazz on TV or whatever. They all say the same thing. The building's packed. The fans are loving it still. And no, they're not. Like, just stop it, okay? And maybe there are fans there that were able to get tickets through their buddy who knows a ticketing guy or whatever, and maybe you just want to go and bring your family and enjoy a game and get out of the house. But it's time to say the fans are not enjoying this. This is the worst 4-year stretch of Jazz basketball in the history of the organization.
Yeah, well, what is happening is that they're really ramping up the entertainment portion of the non-basketball stuff. So whether it's the hip hop music that they've turned up a Spinal Tap to an 11, before the game, so you can't talk to the person next to you, or the fog machines, which I still don't get. I still don't understand. Okay, I'm one of the old guys. Okay, you're not into it. All right, just step aside and let us do our thing. I got it. But. They have some fog machines or something that go on like 20 minutes before the game, and you sometimes you have a hard time seeing across the arena to the other side because there's so much. I don't know what that is. I'm not being facetious. We're joking so far about the status of the Jazz, but all this pregame stuff, and then the announcer who took over for Dan Roberts. I'm sure he's a good guy. I think he's a very professional and a guy who knows what he's doing. And it seems to me like that somebody has instructed him to make sure that everything he says into the microphone he yells at the top of his lungs, so that it always feels like his head's about to explode. I don't know how he feels at the end of the game because it seems like he's been yelling constantly for 2.5 hours. I don't know if that's supposed to incite the crowd or keep them into the game or what, but all that stuff just feels and looks to me, my opinion, my reaction, like it's all trying to cover up what the real thing is. They're just trying to, literally the smoke and mirrors of the situation.
That's all they've tried to do for 4 years. But you can't fool people that know what's going on. And Andrew Urban, friend of the show, but the in-arena entertainment, whether it's the guy who took over for Dan or whether it's that other kid, I don't know his name, who just, it's WWE yelling all the time.
Yeah.
And it feels like a different experience in the building. And everything is created to distract people from what is actually going on behind the scenes. But if you understand the league and if you're watching the game, it's very clear what's actually happening.
You know what? And you may be right onto it. Maybe that's the whole approach. Is like we distract them with all this other stuff or whatever, and throwing cookies up in the stands and the T-shirts and everything else. Then all the other teams do it to some extent, what have you, but. At some point, it just seems like it's really kind of overdoing all this stuff. It just feels it has, to me, Spence, it has some kind of a fake Vegas vibe.
Barnum and Bailey BS.
Yeah, like something like that.
We're gonna march out a bearded lady tomorrow night against Washington. Who's going to be able to lose more elegantly tomorrow night between the Jazz and the Wizards?
Well, again, Spence, we get down to that portion, right? The Jazz have 10 games left in the regular season, to their season. But you've gotten guys, you got these G League guys who are out there playing, and we've said it before, and they will keep trying to do this. They're trying to show that they belong, whether it's with the Jazz or another organization, that they have the skill level, the talent, the ability to play at this level, to compete, and to help somehow instill a winning approach and attitude. And they're trying to show what they can do. And so it contradicts what you feel like is really going on. And so I often wonder what the halftime meeting is like in the locker room, because that the team doesn't really want them to have the success, and they want to protect their draft pick situation, and yet the players are sitting there going, man, I went 4 for 5 in the first half. I've got 12 points and I got 3 assists. Man, if I can get that up to 20 points in an NBA game, my agent can send that film out to all the other teams this summer, and I might be able to get a contract. That kind of thing. And it just seems like there'd be a pulling and tugging of agendas right in the middle of the game between what the organization wants and what an individual player on the floor wants.
A friend of mine just sent me a quote that we'll attribute to Dan Roberts himself. Quote, "You can never manufacture genuine crowd excitement."
Yeah.
And look, Dan did a marvelous job over the course of his career. And, I always thought he did a really good job of not upping his excitement level until the moment presented itself. John and Carl, 90s, Bulls, finals. Those teams under Coach Sloan and Coach Layden were so good and competitive more often than not that I always thought Dan did a really, really good job of monitoring the moment. And when the moment called for it, then you saw excited Dan. Mm-hmm. But if the moment didn't call for it, you saw Dan just doing his job, right? And so it is a bit of an art. And maybe this new gentleman can learn it, but it's a different thing.
And I would say this, Spence, without knowing anything, and I preface my comment, I don't know anything about the game operations and what they're doing. And I think the guy that replaced Dan, I'm sure he knows what he's doing, how to do the job, and all of that. I take that for granted. I don't know what his direction is by the people he reports.
Very fair.
To say, hey. Just keep the volume up. Keep it up. Whatever. It doesn't matter. The guy loses the ball out of bounds. He lost the ball out of bounds. Yelling into the microphone like I just did. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I had to turn you down a little bit, but you're good. You're good.
But and so that stuff starts to wear you out. As the game unfolds, you're like, not everything is the last play of the 7th game of the finals.
Right.
Not every play.
Yeah.
So anyway, and enough of that.
It's what makes Mike Breen a master at this craft, right? And Marv was really good at this too, where you're just calling Mike Breen does not say bang when somebody hits the 3 with 7 minutes left in the first quarter in a 20-point game. He saves it for a big shot down the stretch. And I do think there's a little bit of an art to that. But there is and it may have started with Marv, because Dolan called Marv in and said, you will be positive during our broadcast from now on. And Marv was like, no, I won't. I'm going to do my job. And he fired him. So there's an undercurrent now of dark overlord of ownerships. So I want to be fair to the people that are just doing their jobs. I have no idea what they're told to do. Bowler, Thurl, Locke, anyone who's calling games, as Ryan sent the message that you need to be positive no matter what. Because when I watch those games, man, those guys are unbelievably positive while calling a game that is unbelievably unwatchable.
Yeah, and you're exactly right, Spence. And it wouldn't surprise me if that was the deal, just because I think that's normal for any organization. They're trying to sell their product, and when you have a bad product and you're still trying to sell it, you're still trying to roll the cans off the shelves, so to speak, and turn over your stock and keep your sales going. It's you got to have something to some kind of a crutch to lean on. So maybe that's the shucking and jiving about how you present it and all that kind of stuff. That's just I don't take too much into what the people on the front lines are doing, because I think they are, just as you say, trying to do their job, and I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they have instructions from higher up in ownership and management to try and get a positive spin on everything you can, and then you see it even with the post game stuff with Alema Harrington and Mike Smith who are trying to find the nuggets and whatever they can find to try and spin something. I'm sure they're under the same kind of instructions and edict to try and make sure you get the fans to tune in to the next game.
Rise and shout, the propaganda is out when it comes to those guys who are friends of the show and join us from time to time, and as people very much like them. I'm not certainly trying to run down any of my friends. This has just been an exhausting 4-year process without a whole lot of upward progress. That's the deal. And anytime they started to play well, they broke the team down. And then this messaging about player development and minute restriction, it's just like, dude, go try to win the game, please. And hopefully next year they'll do that, I guess, is where we go next.
Well, you hope. And look, they made what I consider a terrific move in getting Jaren Jackson. He's a real guy. He comes back with from the minor surgery he had to be fully healthy this summer, to get some work in and get ready for next year. Okay, everybody saw a little glimpse of that when they had him here for a few games, and then they pulled him out, and then you don't see him again, and everybody got excited, I guess, for a few days, and then they said, well, hold that thought, we'll get back to you in October. Okay, and that seems to be what they're doing. But again, if all those things fall in line, with him coming back and healthy, Lauri Markkanen coming back and healthy, Keontae George coming back and healthy, if they're able to re-sign Walker Kessler, and then whatever they end up with the draft and whatever happens, with Ace Bailey and his continued development, who's getting better and is looking more comfortable on the floor, then all of a sudden next October, they look like they could be a very, very interesting team going forward.
Let me ask you, it's always difficult. It's always been difficult. I kind of call it the Sharif Abdul-Rahim effect, where for years up in, was it Vancouver? Was he a Grizzly?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
and he was like a 20-10 guy every year, but they won like 15 games. Yeah. So it's always hard to know what numbers mean when you're playing for a team that's bad at basketball. But let's talk about Cody Williams first and then Ace Bailey second. So, again, Cody was encouraged to find something else to do with his time last night instead of actually developing and playing NBA minutes, which you thought was the deal down the stretch. 23 points against Milwaukee, 5 boards. He had 34 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists against Sacramento in a game where 2 teams combined to sit 18 players. 19 against Portland, double digits in 8 of the last 9 games he's played. Does it mean anything? What can you share with us about what we could potentially learn with the undeniable numbers he was putting up in games where they weren't very competitive more often than not?
Well, again, the hard part about all of this type of evaluation, when you're rolling out young guys and you're playing them major minutes in NBA games, you have to take into account the opposition you're playing, what their motivation is, what they're trying to do. Tomorrow night, we're going to see a Washington team that's in the same spot as the Jazz. They're doing the exact same thing. They're sitting all their better players, so to speak, and playing young guys in under the canopy of player development. So you don't know what your guys do against a team like that, what their numbers are going to look like and what that really means when you play a team, like say next week when Cleveland comes to town and Cleveland is jockeying for top playoff positioning, is trying to get their team in sync for the playoff situation. It's going to be a different vibe on the floor in the middle of the game against guys who are trying to win and trying to establish, their flow going into April and into the playoffs. And so that evaluation part is always difficult because these games like tomorrow night, this I would anticipate it would be very much like a game on July 11th or July 12th, meaning the Summer League. So they're going to be Summer League guys. And we all know, Spence, we all got the long list of guys who went into the Summer League and averaged 32 points a game and had a 44-point blow-up game. And everybody said, he's the next guy. He's our guy. And then, come next year in November, he was on the end of the bench. And before the guaranteed date in January, he was gone, that kind of thing. So how do you evaluate the guys when they're not playing meaningful games, when they're not playing against teams who also aren't trying to put their best foot forward? Then you also add on the layer that the real development comes when you're playing in games that matter to you as well as to the other team, because now the pressure is on you not to make a mistake. The pressure is on you to drill those two open jumpers on the weak side in the fourth quarter in a 2-point game. That's when the pressure's on. That's when you have to start figuring out how to deliver. And without that kind of training, without that kind of muscle memory, if you will, it's very difficult to evaluate where these guys are. Spence, it's not wholly dissimilar to being in the weight room and working on your strength every day, and you can see a little bit of progress here and there every day because you're doing the same thing against the same type of resistance. When you're playing games that don't matter and you're playing against guys that also don't matter, then it's really a glorified pickup game that the guys are out there playing at. You don't have any pressure because your bosses don't really care if you win the game or not. In fact, they kind of would prefer you don't win the game. And so it's a whole different vibe and set of circumstances as a player when you're out there really playing meaningful games versus the kind of games that the Jazz find themselves in now.
I understand you might give me the same answer with Ace, so I'll just ask you to hone in on Ace specifically to tell me what you're seeing, as if, whether or not we are seeing progress. Last night against Toronto, 37 points, 6 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 7 of 10 from 3, hit all 8 of his free throws. Career high 37 points. He had 33 recently in a win against Milwaukee. He also had 9 rebounds. He's getting a lot more usage. He's shooting a lot more threes. In the month of March, Ace is shooting 9 threes a game and making 4, which is 44%, which is really good. For the month of March, he's 21 points, 5 boards, had 32 against Washington earlier this month. So your points about playing against unserious competition in games where both teams are trying to lose, well taken. But Ace specifically, tell me what you're seeing.
Well, I think he's really, his game has slowed down a little bit, and I say that in a positive way. He looks like he's a little more comfortable out on the floor, asserting himself. Again, in these circumstances, it's easier to do that because if you make a few mistakes, you're not going to be saddled to the end of the bench, causing your team to fall behind in a game that you want to win, so to speak. He is showing to me that his game is starting to develop. He's starting to feel comfortable about where he gets his shots from, how he gets his shots. The defensive part, he can be a better than average wing defender and switcher. If again his mentality is to do that. They don't have that mentality at the moment as a team because they're one of the worst defensive teams, and I don't think it doesn't seem as if they're accenting that part of their development as much now because they don't really care whether they perform in that end to a certain level. But the offensive stuff looks like he's becoming more comfortable, looks like he's getting a better handle on what they're trying to do, where his shots can come from, and I really like the progression of his development so far in these first 72 games of the season.
All right, we'll catch a break. Coming up next, I've often said that for the NBA to actually be forced to address what I perceive to be a myriad of issues about a diluted regular season product, they would have to get hit in the pocketbook. Is that happening? We have salary cap numbers released for next year. Smitty's a big hip-hop fan, as he just referenced. Wu-Tang Clan. Smitty is rolling into town.
There we go.
Yeah, you're pumped, aren't you?
There we go. No, yeah.
Okay.
No, those are my guys.
Wu-Tang is your guy?
Oh, come on.
Who's your favorite member?
Come on, Spence.
Okay.
The guy with the grill.
Oh.
The grill and the
Method
the
Man.
dreadlocks with
Method Man, yeah.
Is it Method Man?
Yeah, there you go. Wu-Tang Clan is coming live to Utah First Credit Union Amphitheater September the 29th. Don't miss your chance to see hip-hop legends take the stage. Listen to ESPN 700 all week at noon for your shot to win a pair of tickets. Wu-Tang Clan at UFCU Amphitheater on September the 29th. Going to catch up with Matt Muehlbach today. A little college basketball on the Arizona broadcast. Smitty actually filled out a bracket, didn't he?
I did. Hey, yeah, I have no idea how I'm doing.
Yeah, I'll check because I know that I'm not doing well. Now, I think most of us still have our Final Four because chalk, right? There's no mid-majors left in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah.
What do you make of that?
I think that's I think I might have something like that, Spence. I think, teams I took, but, it always comes down to, as we always beat this dead horse about teams having experienced players, talented players, which a lot of teams have as younger guys, but also third and fourth year guys, especially on the guard line. And so if you have that, and then you have your health and all your guys, BYU, we saw them fall short last week, in my opinion, in a large part because of the injury bug. They just didn't have enough horses, to get that train going during the tournament. And other teams have fallen by the wayside, in similar fashion. But the teams who have their main players who are healthy and playing, they can get the job done in tight quarters when it comes down to a 2-minute game. Those are the teams that are still alive.
I have the standings in front of me.
Okay.
The ESPN VIP bracket, which is there's 8 of us.
It's a VIP bracket.
Is John Watkins a DJ on one of our FM stations?
Morning show over there, 101.
I should know that.
Okay.
So the host of the morning show on 101 whatever is winning our bracket challenge.
There you go.
Correct.
That's embarrassing.
The way it should be, yeah.
Well, my 9-year-old nephew is winning the family bracket challenge. I can promise you he's never watched college basketball in his life. He's 9.
That's Spence. That's why we always say, why do we do these things?
Yeah.
If anybody actually knew what they were writing down, we would be living in Las Vegas, and we would be making frequent visits to our private island in the Bahamas.
Indeed. So John Watkins, who's not in sports, he's the only one in our group who's not in sports. He's leading our bracket challenge.
Good for him.
In second place is Bryce Larson, tied with Adrian Denny, who's a hockey guy.
Okay.
In third place is none other than Richard Smith.
That's a mistake.
In fourth place is none other than this guy, right behind you.
This guy.
And then Gordy's in fifth, Sean in sixth, James in seventh, and Porter Ware. I can't see yours. What place?
I'm at 47.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't get it in time. So
that's right. We've been over this.
He didn't get it. Wait a minute.
He did not get his bracket in on time.
He didn't. And Porter and I went back and forth on this for about 24 hours because I sent him a photocopy of my bracket because I filled it out by hand. I didn't know how to do it online.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
So I sent the text to Porter. Said, "Hey, here's my bracket." He said, "Hey, can you put this in online? Here's the link. Just fill it out." Okay. So he's walking me through how to do it. Apparently, I got it in on time.
Yeah.
But apparently, he was too busy instructing people like me to do it himself.
So it sounds like it's your fault that Porter didn't submit his bracket.
Spence, this happens around my house all the time. Somehow it always gets back to me, and being my fault. So.
All right. Well, there you go. Do you remember who your Final Four is?
I know that I picked Houston to win the whole thing.
Okay.
I do remember that. I think it was Houston, UConn, Michigan, Arizona. Could that be right?
Yes, it is. You have UConn and Houston on one side, Arizona and Michigan on the other.
Yeah.
Houston beating Arizona for the championship.
Yeah.
My Final Four is Duke, Houston, Arizona, Iowa State. Iowa State just had an injury, so I'm probably screwed there. And I have Arizona beating Duke in the final.
Okay. Yeah, I think Arizona's a good pick. I don't know, the Boozer kids are my guys, and I love them. It just feels like they're not going to have quite enough to get.
Are they getting those? Are they getting those 2 kids back? They've got 2 injuries to 2 starting players.
Yeah, one of them came back. Right?
Oh, okay.
The second game this past weekend. Yeah.
I like Houston though.
Yeah. Well,
they're playing well.
Yeah, and those two freshmen are big time players, and then they put them together with the guys who came back from last year, and they're a hard-nosed group. They really guard the basketball.
They do. Kelvin Sampson's a hell of a coach. All right, I've long said that if the NBA is ever going to address the fact that they have an unwatchable, diluted product for much of the regular season with about a third of their league, they're ever going to do something about it, they're going to need to get hit in the pocketbook a little bit. So the report came out that the NBA is projecting its salary cap for next year at $165 million. It's only $1 million less than last year, but it's the first time that it's gone in the wrong direction. Okay, so a lot of this, so we'll just walk through this a little bit. The salary floor is $149 million, tax level $201, first apron $209, second apron $222. All of those apron levels are $1 million below initial projections per this report that we have. 29 of the NBA 29 of the NBA's 30 teams are above the soft salary cap this season. Only Brooklyn is below. Memphis Grizzlies second lowest at 157. A lot of this is what the report is saying due to local media revenue taking a hit with the regional sports networks all but canceled. Yeah. You've been in this business forever. What do you think this means?
Well, what's going to happen, Spencer, if you're a team and you're looking at your salary structure, every team that is serious about trying to compete is going to go right up to the edge of the salary cap, and then depending on how much belief you have in your group and what the thinking is in the room about where we really fit in the grand scheme of things, then you might have an owner who says, yeah, I want to push over that cap into one of the aprons where you start getting taxed for spending too much money. This is all for our listeners who need just some simple basketball, NBA basketball 101. The salary cap and the structures of paying salaries are all put in place by the NBA to try and level the playing field so that all of the teams have an equal shot financially at being able to compete. They don't do it as well as the NFL does, which has a hard cap. And once you have so much money, you have a certain amount of money you can spend, and that's all, and you just have to figure it out. The NBA puts penalties if you keep going above that. And what happens, Spence, is you have some owners who don't care because they have so much money that all they want to do is win. So they will push over the first apron, which means it's a certain tax level. Then if you get into the second apron, it's an additional tax level. But what happens is if you do that 3 times over a span of 4 years, in other words, they call it a repeater tax. If you fall into that category as an owner, as an organization, then those fines start to triple, quadruple, even quintuple, depending on how much money you're spending. And so they really try and slap your wrists, to say, we told you don't spend that much money. If you do it again next year, you're going to be fined even more money. So now, for example, the Golden State Warriors a couple of years ago decided to go all in, on their team, and they're older veterans, and they're paying them a lot of money. But they had paid out something in the neighborhood of like $330 million for a team that was in the play-in situation. And so it didn't work out. But the rationale is they have billionaire owners, and the billionaire owners were kind of retroactively paying, if you will, players for winning the previous championship, and that kind of back pay, if you will, for getting over the hump and doing that. And there's a lot of owners, Spence, in the NBA who have that kind of money who would be willing to do that if they had a crystal ball and could say, hey, we're going to spend the money because 3 years from now, we're going to win the championship. I have it guaranteed right here. And those guys would go, let's go. And
so the reduction in the salary cap overall is as a result of what the NBA has done concerning locally broadcast games. Now, one thing that I really think Ryan and Ashley Smith deserve a lot of credit for is that K-Jazz deal. We are lucky here in the market that we can watch Jazz games on K-Jazz. And I'm not going to pretend that I can speak to every single market, But as a result of these massive television deals that the league made with ESPN, NBC, and Amazon, a lot of the local broadcasts have been pulled from certain markets. So that's where this dip in revenue is actually coming from, as I'm digging into this a little bit deeper. And I don't have numbers in front of me as far as how many people under 30 even have cable, right? Like how many people have completely pulled the plug. And the league will not be going backwards, okay? It's not like every single market is going to have a K-Jazz deal. Like I said, we're lucky that we can see Jazz games for free on K-Jazz. Yep. But they did make a little bit of a shift. And the NBA is not even pretending like they're not aggressively attacking young people. They are aggressively going after young people. Watching All-Star Weekend media coverage was an embarrassment. Okay, Devin Booker was asked about aura farming by 6 influencers during his media availability. So, they've got YouTubers playing in the celebrity game. They have influencers on social media encouraging them to take videos and post on their social media platforms. And the traditional fourth estate, as we talk about all the time, there's not a place for it. So the NBA really is aggressively going after their viewers under 30. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah, and what's happening, Spence, is you're exactly right when you talk about over-the-air broadcasting or even cable TV. And let's bring it to baseball, because baseball starts tomorrow, just as an example. And this is the direction that the NBA is heading in as well. Tomorrow is opening day. There's one game. The Yankees are playing the Giants. The game is on national TV. What network, Spence, without looking, what network is it on tomorrow?
Get a guess, ESPN.
National TV.
Oh, ABC would be my guess.
Okay.
Fox.
How about Netflix?
Netflix has the baseball game. Oh, wow.
The opening game of the baseball season.
So you fooled me.
You go to Netflix and you looked at your friends. You go, I don't have Netflix. Well, dude, then you're not watching the opening game of the baseball season. What are you talking about?
That was a bad faith question, Smitty.
No,
you said network television.
I know. I backed you into that. But look, they open the season on net. Like that's where it's heading, right? Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. To your point, Ryan and Ashley Smith, whatever that costs them out of their pocket to get it on K-Jazz for the local fans to be able to watch the team, those who still want to watch this year. But kudos to them for making it available and accessible to the fans. The next day, Thursday, when all the teams in baseball start playing, 2 national TV games. What network are they on, Spence? Don't look, Spence. Don't look.
Amazon?
Right. Okay, you're close. Peacock.
Peacock, okay.
Mm-hmm. They're on Peacock. All the rest of the games were on MLB TV.
Okay.
So, again, if you're a baseball fan, Spence, you can't watch any of the opening baseball games with your team unless you have some kind of subscription or streaming service.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's where it's going. That's where the NBA also is heading in that direction. And, the downturn in the revenue for next year, that's interesting to me, but, with the new cable TV package, they've got the streaming stuff coming on board quickly. But that is what shows you they're trying to get all those younger demographics, the people who don't have cable TV, like your boy Richard Smith.
You don't have cable?
No, I do have cable.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I'm in that diminishing group, right? That
so am I. Yeah.
But it's and I pay for these, right? I pay for MLB TV. Okay. I pay for Netflix. Okay. I do that because I want to see what I want to see. But the days of watching it on ABC or watching on the weekend on NBC Game of the Week or whatever, those days are diminishing quickly.
How many times, and I know that you were always working games, so maybe this is different. So I'll just speak for myself. I would say in years past, I'll set the over-under on 80 inside the NBA on TNT watches for me.
Oh, okay.
Regular season playoffs. One of my favorite TV shows, not one of my favorite sports TV. Like, Ernie's a savant. He's a master. And you know the deal. Chuck is Chuck. And the whole thing, I think maybe I've seen 5 this year.
Okay.
What about you?
Okay. Well, I see it. I see it when I happen to be there. I don't seek it out.
Yeah.
I don't plan an evening around it. I know those guys. I know it's a glorified version of a barbershop thing. You know, they're just hanging out and talking. That's how they want to scheme it. That's what they think the Joe average fan connects with, which I probably tend to agree that they do, because they're very popular. People like to feel like those guys are sitting in the living room with me, and they're just going back and forth.
Yeah.
And I'm just hanging out, listening, and going to get the popcorn and the drinks when they need it or something. But I'm in the mix, right? You just don't hear my voice. So that's how they set it up, and they become very popular over the years of doing that. So much so that whole group was moved from one network to another network, right? And paying them more money to do that, to keep it intact, because they knew that that's what the viewers respond to. So, that stuff is the direction that it's not just going in, but where it is, and how much further do they go in that regard. Look what they do with Charles Barkley. They throw him over on college basketball. Charles Barkley hasn't watched many college basketball games.
Oh, for sure.
This year.
I don't know how many NBA games he watches, Smitty.
But he is on national TV, on the desk, giving you the breakdown every halftime. Now we're going back to the studio, the halftime of the Iowa State game. Here's the guys. And Chuck, what do you think? Yeah, the guy, number 12, he's really quick. That guy, whatever it is.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But people don't care, because they think he's their buddy. The frequency he's on and the familiarity that he exhibits with you as a viewer is what people respond to, and obviously that's what they pay him for.
The ESPN, and I want to be careful here, because we have several friends of the show that cover the NBA for ESPN, and I think they all do a great job. Tim McMahon, Dave McMiniman, Timmy Bontemps, all those guys. And Breen is a master, but their studio pre-half and post-game coverage when it's not inside the NBA on TNT is atrocious. And it used to be great. Like a couple years ago when the Knicks made the playoffs, I had to explain to my nephew that Stephen A. Smith does not play for the Knicks. Because he marches out on the Garden floor, and the cameras follow him like they do coaches and players. He doesn't offer anything of substance. He's become this caricature. Might be our next president. I mean,
there we go.
The whole thing is such an abomination. I think Malik is very good. I think they have some talented people. But can we get some former coaches and players to chime in here to give you a little credibility? Amazon does a phenomenal job. Dirk is really good. Mm-hmm. I think NBC has done a really good job bringing back some of the old school stuff. But the ESPN coverage, and again, Mike Breen's my guy. Okay, yeah. He's as good as it gets. Yeah. And some of their color analysts are pretty good. Some of I don't know.
Yeah, well, what happens, Spence, is again, they're trying to appeal to a demographic where they feel like the viewer somehow feels that they have a connection with that person they're watching on TV. That they say it's just like the thing when you're walking through an airport, Spence, and George Clooney walks by you, and you're going, "Hey, that's George Clooney. Hey, George," and you say something to him or try to approach him as if he knows you, and the way do you think.
You know him, yeah.
Right? And George Clooney looks, hey, how you doing? And keeps walking because he doesn't know you. Mm-hmm. But that's how you internalize it. And so people, whether it's Jamal Mashburn, right, or whether it's Jalen Rose, or whether it's Barkley, or Wally Zerbiak, or whoever it is, people they've watched in the NBA. They get those, they traipse those guys out. You haven't seen them all year. All of a sudden they're on a set and they're telling you what's going on in the game. And the producers, the people who make those decisions think that that's insightful and think that that's what the viewers want to see and what they respond to. Some of it to me seems awfully corporate and awfully canned. And sometimes it really feels a little bit just awkward about, it feels like they're trying to squeeze a round ball into a square peg or something, and just doesn't seem to fit very well.
All right, last thing, we'll end on this, and I'll set you loose. We've long heard a lot of people. Steve Kerr's been really loud about this. Let's reduce the number of games played in the regular season. So the NBA Players Union has brought to the table a 65-game season now. They want to reduce the season to 65 games. What do you think?
Well, let me tell you this, Spence. And over 30 years ago, Frank Layden and Pat Riley, in coaches' meetings for the NBA in the 90s, they were talking about trying with David Stern, trying to get a meeting and trying to get these so-called decision makers in a room to discuss this very topic. They were both very adamant with the Commissioner Stern about the idea that we are playing too many games. We need to look at trying to figure out a way to cut down the number of games because of the quality and also because of the injury situation. This is in the mid-'90s, Spencer. We're talking about 30 years ago that these guys were harping on this, and nobody wanted to listen. David Stern told them basically, well, our season is what it is, and the only way we could do that is if you get everybody to figure out how they're going to take 20% less money in their paychecks. And, when you get that, then come back to me and let me know that you've got everybody on board. And they said, well, nobody's going to do it. Yeah, exactly. Nobody's going to do that. So what are we talking about? So it kind of fell on deaf ears. And obviously Frank's not with us anymore, but I wonder if, if yet in this regard, if you'd ever hear anything from Pat Riley, who was harping on that with Coach Layden 30 years ago about this very topic. It seems to make a lot of sense just because of the saturation of games, the way the calendar is, but also what we're all dealing with now with all these teams that aren't playing serious games, and you're asking the public to buy tickets and the advertisers to spend money and the suite holders to make commitments and all this stuff, and your TV advertisers to get people to watch the games that don't mean anything. What are we doing? So that part of it would be intriguing, but the only way you're ever going to get a serious discussion is if you have sides who come into it with the initial idea that whatever we decide here going forward, there is going to be less money in my pocket, okay? If you don't agree to that premise right off the bat, don't come in the room and sit down at the table, okay? Because that's the only way we can get anywhere to go. Spence, my guess is that nobody comes in the room and that you call the meeting and you're sitting there at the table and nobody comes in the room.
Yep.
And you're waiting and you're waiting and you're going, well, I guess that's the end of the meeting.
Yep. All right, Smitty. Good to see you. Great stuff. We'll chat soon, okay?
Hi, Spence. Thanks, man.
Going to catch a break. Matt Muehlbach joins us coming up next on ESPN 700. Get back to some college football conversation in the 5 o'clock hour. Spring football rolling along up on the hill for the University of Utah. BYU already has had their spring football experience, so we'll get to that in the 5 o'clock hour. But our next guest, I realize I have not interviewed Matt Muehlbach since the Pac-12 days. It's been a while since Matt's been on the show. How are you, sir? How you been?
I'm fantastic. Great to be back on with you. Love all the Utah Utes and the fans down there up there. And by the way, Dave Matthews, you pulled me in with a little Dave Matthews, my favorite band. So I appreciate that as well.
Well, we just became best friends, Matt. I don't know if you knew that. You and I are now buddies. Do I dare ask you? You can't ask it back because it's embarrassing. How many Dave Matthews shows have you been to?
I think I've been to 17.
Okay.
So pretty in the Dave world, in the Dave heads. That's pretty kind of small, but it's something, But yeah, I'm guessing you're up pretty high, huh?
Yeah, I used to think it was cool, and now it's embarrassing. It's like probably close to 60, if I'm honest.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
I saw him last summer in. First time I ever saw him in SPAC up in
nice
New York at the what is that, the performing where they have the racetrack up there just north of Albany. Saw him up there. What a great venue, and I'm kind of bummed though his concert schedule came out. He doesn't do a lot of West Coast shows anymore.
Yeah, no, it's become a shtick in the marketplace. I just get made fun of all the time for my love of Dave Matthews Band. I will ask you one more. Did you ever have a Gorge experience?
I've never had a Gorge experience. I have met Dave. I met him once.
Okay.
And that was super cool. But no, the Gorge is, God, it'd be one of those times just to get up there and I heard it's an event for your lifetime.
Yes, I would recommend doing that once. And since you have met him and I have not, I will. It's my show. Everyone, calm down. What was that? What was that like? What was that like meeting him?
He was exactly what you would expect.
Okay.
Like just super chill, even keel. Couldn't have been nicer. I actually went with my sister. She loved him before I did, and my younger sister, and so she was fawning all over him, and he couldn't have been a nicer superstar, and just humble, very humble, and just kind of probably why all the Dave people love his music. He's that kind of guy, very humble, and obviously a magical artist.
Good stuff. Well, we could do 20 more minutes of this, but for the sake of the show, I guess we'll move on. And Matt, I want to start with a thought on the task that lies ahead for Alex Jensen here in Salt Lake City. Al, of course, is a legend here. He was Mr. Basketball in high school, a great player in college for some of the best teams we've ever seen in the state. And, Alex, to his credit, wanted to finish the season with the Dallas Mavericks last year. And I think that says a lot about him, that he wanted to finish what he started. The problem is when the hire became official and by the time Al was done, a lot of the talent was off the board and they just had to scramble to put together a roster. I'll say this, and I want your thoughts. I wasn't expecting much this year, but I think it's safe to say I was expecting a little bit more than what we saw.
Well, I was fortunate enough to do, I think, 3 or 4 of the Utah games this year, and so got a chance to meet Alex all those times at shoot around, and I was really impressed with him. I love his demeanor. I love his background and the Majerus ties, and obviously, the thing I liked most was he wants to be at Utah. It's not a stepping stone. This is where I want to be, and I'm in it for the long run and to do it the right way. And so I was impressed with that. He's a good example to me is Tommy Lloyd at Tucson, where I live, and I've gotten to know Tommy real well. I think it took Tommy, even though Tommy, his first year was a 1 seed at the tournament, and he had a lot of great talent, Sean Miller, leftover talent, and he brought some good ones in. But it's taken Tommy, I think, a couple of years to kind of figure out just how to build the personnel and how to build the team. And now, it's an art, right? It's not a science, and you can just as well as he hit it this year and is doing so great, but you could also miss it, the next year. And so even if you have time, it's not easy. But I think like Tommy really figured out how to kind of build a team for the Big 12 and the rugged defensive, physical, style for that. And I think that'll be something Alex will kind of figure out, right? There's so much more now to coaching. They got to be GMs and, kind of figure out the money piece and the transfer piece. And there's so much. And obviously they're trying to build culture in 5 minutes. So, I think as experienced as he is and and he knows hoops and he knows how to build a winner, I think it's just going to take him time to do that. And I like him. I like him a lot. I like his history, and I think his devotion to the school is going to, when it counts, he's going to want to prove to everybody there in Salt Lake City that, they can bring a winner there, and I think he'll do a good job.
Yeah, I believe he's the right guy. Needs some economic assistance this offseason and certainly the ability to add talent. And we'll get to Arizona in a minute, Matt. They're my pick to win it all. Watching all this Big 12 basketball this year, I've just been so impressed. But let's stick with some local stuff because I thought we were going to see a little bit of a better performance this year from Brigham Young. Now, they lost players to injury. The Richie Saunders thing just really hurt them. But even prior to Richie going down, probably 3 other injuries to players that would have been in the rotation. The A.J. DeBonsa experience was all it was cracked up to be. That kid is awesome. But your thoughts on the season that we just saw from BYU?
Yeah, I had them once and had a chance to cover them. I liked them a lot. I was actually, unfortunately, I'm almost sad to say, I called the game where Richie, blew out his knee. It was awful. I remember, I think it was the second play of the game, and we turned to each other, and I kind of looked at it, and I was like, it was such an odd, one of those odd plays. You weren't sure that he was even hurt. But then when I saw him walk off, you just start thinking the worst. And it was awful, such a good kid. And I thought he was having a year that, and it still doesn't change this, but, kind of a great second-round pick, early second round, mid-second round in the NBA. I think he's got a future. In fact, my comp to him was Landry Shamet or Shamet. I think he's really close to, does a lot of the same things. Their stats in college were really similar, same size. But no, I liked what they did. I think, Coach Young still same thing. I think as much as he knows basketball and he knows NBA and he knows, you're trying to figure out the college, try to put the right college team together. And I think he can do it. They certainly have the resources and they're supporting. DeBansa was just fun to watch. It was amazing. Just to have him in that energy in the Marriott Center, and it was pretty special. And so I think they'll continue to do those type of things, and then you hope for for good health. That's just one of the things you can't put your finger on that when it happens, and it just happens. It's unfortunate and bad luck, right? It could happen to any team this week. And so you just kind of cross your fingers. But I love what they're doing. Their crowd is pretty special. It was fun to be there. And again, it's funny because I think people thought, for whatever reason, I think people thought BYU would struggle in the Big 12. They've done great in football and basketball. And so I think there is a learning curve to it. Though, I think the Pac-12 teams where I came from, Tommy figured it out pretty quickly. But, ASU, Colorado, Utah, Utah is a change of coaching. That was the biggest thing. But, you got to kind of figure it out. It's a different conference. It's a different type of team that you put together. And I think, the good ones will figure that out, but it's definitely hard these days. It's a lot, man. I did Washington this year. They spent a lot of money. They were I think 500 or under because they had half their team hurt. So, what do you do about that? You just kind of plug away for the next year.
One more local question as I continue to feel really bad for my friends in Logan. There's something in the water up there where it almost doesn't matter who the coach is. They're going to win 25 games, and they're going to go to the tournament and maybe win the conference. And Jared Calhoun, the latest to parlay a Utah State job into a payday where he goes back to his alma mater, Cincinnati. Can't blame him. We had a Utah State alum on yesterday, Spencer Nelson, who gave us a really great articulate answer, just being happy for him because he's going home. But what do you make of this? Cincinnati getting a new coach, the coach that just coached the Aggies.
Yeah, he did such a great job Sunday. I was at the game. I'm a former U of A player. We were dying up there watching that comeback, and Calhoun he's terrific. I did a couple of his games, maybe one last year and then a couple the year before, and I loved him. I thought he was just sensational. I loved his approach. You could just, I told everyone and all my guys before the game Sunday, I said, we're not in trouble, but we got to play well because he will give us everything he's got, and they'll make it very tough. And if Arizona didn't play well, they'll beat Arizona, and he was close. They brought it back to, I think, 4, but it's his alma mater. I totally understand that. He's just a really good guy, a really good coach. You're right. And I think, look, going up there doing the games again, sensational fan base. You know what's amazing? Just Utah, just basketball. It's such a basketball-centric state. I love the support that all those schools give, and they're hungry for it, And I played my last year. We played the Sweet 16, and the first 2 rounds in Salt Lake City. We had we were a 2 seed, and second round we played BYU with Sean Bradley, and it's just, you can tell how hungry that state is, and it's fun to be at those games as announcers. Those are some of the most fun games. I've called many Utah games over the years. In fact, I actually saw Larry Kristoviak at the game.
Oh, nice.
Had some good hanging out with him for a minute. Some good old times. Being at all those Utah games over the years, and it's fun to watch this because those teams are a couple good players and a little energy, and those fans they'll be rocking at any of those arenas. They're just waiting for it.
Larry Kristoviak, friend of the program, he was so good to me when he was here, and wish it ended differently, but it's a tough business. And yeah. And you're right about Utah being a basketball state. And I don't know if you know this, Matt. We currently have a pro basketball team that is delicately approaching the dynamic to hold on to their draft pick. Okay, so we'll leave that there. We'll leave that there. If the Jazz luck into, for the first time, the number 1 overall pick, which of these prospects do you like the most and why?
I think for me, AJ, I would take DeBounce, and I don't even think I'd hesitate doing it. You interview him and you look at him and all that. I saw him and Peterson play within 5 days of each other, and by the way, the game I saw Peterson play, he scored 13 points in 5 minutes, and he at times looked like Kobe. But I just think, I'll say it positively, I just think AJ displayed for me just checked every box. He's long, he's tall, he's a perfect body for the NBA. He talks on the court like he really gets after it, and he wants to win. And look, he's a scorer too. There were probably some guys kind of got on him about that, but he'll give it up when he needs to. I just think he's going to be a 10-time All-Star. I think he has the highest floor of probably anyone in the draft. And I also think he's got a great ceiling too. I think he's going to be terrific. I would pick him first. I think in that second, third, fourth, I certainly would. I can't wait till. I'd love for Arizona to win because that's my squad, right? That's where I went, so I want to see him Thursday. But Acuff is going to be interesting to watch Thursday. He's fantastic. I thought Kingston Flemings played his way potentially into the top 3 or 4 this year, and I think Boozer. So I think all those guys right there. I think that if you get any of them, but to me, AJ was the cream of the crop.
And I agree. I think to start the year, everyone was on the Peterson stuff, but I think AJ's earned the right to at least certainly be in the consideration. Let's do a couple Big 12 topics, then we'll land on Arizona to finish. Iowa State, the Joshua Jefferson injury, I don't know where we're at with that, but of course that hurts their chances. And I just might be Big 12 biased, Matt, because I have Iowa State in the Final Four. I also have Houston and Arizona. But Iowa State, you got to get by Tennessee, and then they're going to have to probably play, Michigan to try to get there. What does this injury mean for them, and what do you foresee as far as their path moving forward?
Well, Houston to me the last few years has set the standard of not just in the Big 12 but in college basketball of playing hard. I love Kelvin Sampson. I played against him. When I was at Arizona, he had his first job at Washington State, and I remember we played him in the Pac-10 tournament. They were the worst team in the league. He took over a team that, they had no talent really, or they had some, but he just so new. But they almost beat us, and we were the number 1 ranked team in the country, and they played, I think, harder than anyone we played that whole year. And that's how he's been ever since. He's perfected it at Houston. But I will say this, Iowa State's second. They're about on par with how Houston plays. They play so hard. In fact, I had Iowa State against Utah in Salt Lake City. That was the first time I saw them live, and they just play so hard. It's just unbelievable. And now they get after you too. They're pretty physical. They'll slap you a little bit and hold you, but that's just the way they play. They just play hard. And I think they can win one game this week. I don't think they can beat Michigan without Jefferson. Now, it's not impossible because Taman Lipsey is one of the great seniors in the game, and what he's done from Ames, Iowa, it's such a great story, and he's a hell of a leader. But I just think Michigan will have too much. They needed Jefferson to facilitate and score. They can defend even without Jefferson. They'll be fine defending. I just don't know if they'll have enough on offense to get past Michigan.
Houston, to your point, and I went down to Provo to watch the Houston BYU game and then was up here watching them against Utah. Yeah, they just get after you, and they were so close to getting the thing done a year ago. I've been impressed with Illinois. It's a good offensive team, and then should they win that game, they'll be a little bit fortunate because Florida got by Iowa, but respect to Iowa and Nebraska, right? So the path forward for Houston, Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the winner of that game, that first game, that team's gonna go to the Final Four.
Yeah.
I think Illinois is number 2 in the country in scoring efficiency and offense. They're completely loaded on offense, but probably the one team you don't want to play if you're Illinois. So it's not a great draw for them. As they say, styles make fights, and that's going to be interesting. Like who wins out? I love Underwood as a coach. I think he's fantastic. Their offense is fantastic, but man, and I will say this too, like in a way, I think they would have been better off playing Houston the second game because then neither of them really had a chance to prepare too much, but that offense probably could just heat up. But a whole week or half a week of Houston prepping for that offense, I'm going to go with Houston.
All right, before we say you lose, as I referenced, I picked your guys to win the whole thing. My assertion, Matt, of all the Big 12 teams, and there's so many good teams in this conference, I do think it's the best league in America. When Arizona is maximizing their best, it looks better than anyone else's best. That's, watching them all year, just extremely impressed. And, of course, Tommy Lloyd, after 2 decades as an assistant up there, has taken over and done a hell of a job. But you have a front row seat to all these games. When they are clicking, what is working, and how do they get this done and cut down the nets?
Well, I've been saying all year it's the biggest, and then I mean tallest and sort of widest girth-related Arizona team in history. They're the strongest Arizona team in history, and I've said for many, many years – the NCAA tournaments is to some degree a rock fight, right? It's not a race at Talladega or like a F1 series race. It's a rock fight. It's a Ford F-150 off-road fight, and this Arizona team has more of that than I've probably ever seen. And so they're built for the tournament. Now, with that said, Acuff on Thursday for Arkansas will be the best player on the court. But I do think Arizona's all-around game. I think they're just more well-rounded, both offense and defense, whereas I think Arkansas offensively can play with Arizona. Like, they'll have enough offense to keep up with them. I just don't know if they'll be able to slow them down. Arizona's just so well-rounded on both sides, and offense, defense. Tommy's got an 8-man rotation that's kind of a perfect rotation. They have a guy in a walk off the bench in Del Orso that are really kind of starters. So they kind of have 7 starters. And they have a perfect combination of youth, NBA freshmen and older guys that have the beef and the strength and experience. Jaden Bradley's been special all year. Whenever Arizona is in trouble, they bring in, Bradley just pulls his Mariano Rivera, the closer, and he closes games. He's done it all year, and he did it Sunday against Utah State when it really mattered. And I didn't think Arizona played well at all. Part of that, a big part was Utah State kind of took it to them. They pressured them and got them uncomfortable. But you need those games in the tournament. And I felt like in the best way possible for Arizona, it scared them. And I've been in those games, and you to some degree you almost have to understand you can lose and feel that, not fear losing. And I think they looked at a loss right in the face and they got out of it. That could be the best thing for them. And, obviously hoping as an alum, but if they just play their game, I think they win both games this weekend.
Last thing, this is a selfish question. You played with Steve Kerr, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, when you played with him, did you think at some point he would evolve into this great coach / leader? Did you see that even as a young Steve Kerr?
Yeah, he had a great line when the team was over in Europe. They said, well, he's always been such a great leader, and when we went to Europe, he led the team and kind of would tell everybody where to go, like when we were in France and when all the team was in France. I said, well, I was the only guy that could speak French. But I'll tell you what, I will say this. From the day I met that guy until today, I mean, he has a Midas touch. He just has an ability to touch things and it turns to gold. And he did with our team in 1988. We went to the Final Four. We weren't able to win it, but it was a historic Arizona all-time year. No Arizona team had ever been ranked number one or went to the Final Four, and then it just kept going. I actually lived in his guest house in Tucson
nice.
while I was in law school, so I got to really know him well. And he's just such a great human being. He really is. He's just an amazing person. He's super humble. He cares about people a ton. He wants the best for everybody. He's very good with his time with people. He's literally the same guy that he was, riding a bike and not having any money in his pocket in 1988, just cruising around Tucson with all of us team. He treated all of us great. I didn't play a lot as a freshman when we played. I played with him. And I guarded him, every day, and just learned a lot from him. And we became really good friends, especially when he bought his house in Tucson. I lived in the guest house. We golfed a lot together, and he's a normal guy. That's the coolest thing. I always tell him, like, if all those things hadn't come true, get in the NBA and play well and win a championship with the Bulls and everything he's ever done, he'd be like just a normal high school basketball coach, just a great guy you'd see on Fridays that, gave his time to people and kids and stuff like that. But he kind of got on a path that was pretty historic and one of the most amazing stories I've ever seen. He's probably got like 8 documentaries on him in different subjects.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing. So, it was pretty cool to see, and none of it really surprises me, but it is. I mean, I shouldn't say this. It's surprising because what he's done is almost, just I can't even believe it. But it also, on the one hand, it does, on the other hand, it doesn't surprise me because of who he is. So.
And for the youngsters who are uninitiated, I'll ask you to Google Sean Elliott and watch that dude play college basketball. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say that just to close it out here, I did go to a concert one time with Steve to Dave Matthews. He was very appreciative. I took him.
Nice.
He became he's a big Counting Crows fan, and he became a Dave fan because I took him to the concert. So
love it.
Yeah, we all speak the same language.
It's called a callback, Matt. Well done, sir. Great to catch up with you. And go Arizona, right? I picked him to win the bracket.
Thanks,
okay.
Yeah, I appreciate it, buddy. All right, bye.
All right, there he is, Matt Muehlbach. You catch that on the way out?
I dig it.
Well, did you tell him that you produced the show and you don't host the show?
Yeah, I did.
Okay. Well, anyway, it was a good interview up until the end. Brought to you today by IFA Country Stores. IFA Step 1 Crabgrass Preventer and Lawn Food gives your turf a strong start for months of thick emerald grass that will leave your neighbors green with envy. It provides a fast green up, helps your grass build up the energy it needs, and it defends against weeds only at IFA. 5 o'clock hours next on ESPN 700. Good work. Final segment. Good bump because the answer is Cabo.
There you go.
I'm done, man. I'm out. Take the job and shove it.
Cabo to retire.
Yeah. I'm moving to Cabo.
It's a good spot.
Until Monday, when I'll come back and host the show. We'll tell you what you can expect the rest of the week as I take a little time off. But a little bit of an urgent call to action here. Our friends at Advanced Window Products have upped the ante, okay? So typically you save $2,500 when you purchase 10 windows or more. Well, today and today only, you got to call right now. You save $3,000 when you purchase 10 windows or more. And also, the discounts can be prorated if you need fewer than 10 windows. This is an excellent deal. The weather's about to get super hot. If your house gets warm in the summer and you have to jack up the AC to keep it cool, you're wasting money. And it's probably because of your windows. So here's the deal. It's our buddy Nate Orchard, Jake Weber, great dudes. Nate, obviously a Utah football legend, 40 years in business, proudly serving Utah since 1986. Give them a call right now to take advantage of the Up the Ante $3,000 savings at 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100, 801-850-9100. Porter, real quick, before I find out how you are going to fill the space while I leave, some headlines are stranger than fiction. Quadruple amputee cornhole player fatally shoots man. Authorities say. Very, very sad. That is a wild headline. A quadruple amputee. I don't even know how he plays cornhole.
Yet alone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just have questions. Again, it's not funny. It's very sad, but that is a headline that really, really stands out.
He's a professional cornhole player, which means he's got a little presence online. So you can go look at how he's able to manage going about his activities, including apparently alleged murder.
Well, the story also says he fled the scene.
Driving.
You know what? I'm going on vacation. We're going to leave that there. All right. I am out the rest of the week. I will be back on Monday. I am just going to sit on a beach and ponder my life's decisions. I have not had a vacation since the holidays, so I'm ready for it. What's the plan, young man? What's the plan the rest of the week? What do you want our listeners to know?
Yeah, Sarah Todd and I will be filling it up tomorrow. Kevin Reynolds will stop by. Zach Harper will stop by. Ben Golliver will stop by. So a bunch of hoops talk on a Wednesday. And I'm going to be up on the hill in the morning talking with some Utah football assistant coaches and coordinators. So I'll bring some sound from that back to the station, and we'll roll from there. And that'll be halfway through your work week.
I want to give a special shout out to Sarah Todd, who has never done this before. Do you know how many people I asked to fill in that have no desire to even try to do 4 hours of radio? They don't even want to give it a try.
It's a particular foray. So yeah, I applaud her for being up for it.
Takes a lot of guts. So Sarah, thank you very much. Give Porter and Sarah your ears the rest of the week, and I'll be back on Monday. We'll say goodnight and a special thank you to Chris Comrani, Richard Smith, Matt Muehlbach. Any of the sound you may have missed from the show today, go to the website. It's ESPN700sports.com. Download our mobile app and take us on the go. The app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. And then for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, check out the podcast page. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts, available wherever you get your shows. While you are on your podcasting app, also search for Reality Check with Spence Checketts. Yes, I'm asking you to subscribe to 2 podcasts, and if you like what I do, it really would help. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight. Have a great rest of the week. Enjoy yourselves. I'll talk to you on Monday of next week. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. You can catch all the action right here, as always, on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.